Alright everybody, it's me Roku back with some more League content, and this video is an in-depth guide on how to optimally lane against every single top laner in the game as Darius. Now the way I'm going to go by this video in terms of structure is I'm going to go through champions one by one, then drag them into one of these tiers from 1 to 9, and then talk about the runes you need, the items you got to build, and also just a general discussion on the matchup itself so that you know how to either snowball or at the very least not int, because some of these champions are such a hard lane that the best you can aim for is just survival. Now, I've also changed the tier system from a 5 tier 1 to a 9 tier 1 to be a bit more accurate. Now, it's like a clear gradient of the easiest matchups to the most difficult matchups in like a more organized manner that's a bit more precise. Now, yeah, let's just get right into it. Our first matchup is Aatrox. Now, Aatrox used to be an easier matchup, and in lower ranks, it's still a matchup that's like a bit lower on the difficulty rating, but since Aatrox has gotten stronger and stronger and stronger in the meta, the matchup has also gotten stronger and more difficult to deal with for Darius. So I'm going to put it right here, skill matchup at 6 out of 9, but keep in mind that if we're talking lower ranks, he's more so around 5 or 4, but the higher up you go, he kind of gets to be like a 7 or even an 8 if the Aatrox player is good enough, because ultimately Aatrox has the range to deal with Darius, and his abilities have CC, which is quite hard for Darius to deal with. Now, rune-wise, we're basically looking for runes that give us either sustain or move speed. So the default Conqueror page plus second wind is good enough, because you can basically use that, combine it with D-Shield to just sustain through his Q-Poke, or if you want, you could go for a more aggressive page and go for sorcery if you're confident enough in dodging his Qs. Either way, you gotta go D-Shield in-game because you really need to just sustain through his poke. If you go D-Blade, you might get into a situation where he Q-combos you and you're forced to just like stay in lane without a way to sustain back that D-Shield gives you because you have D-Blade, and the thing that gives health from having D-Blade, which is auto-attacking the minions, is not really a possibility, because if you go auto the minions for sustain, the Aatrox is just going to Q you and then kill you with Ignite or something like that. So D-Shield is definitely the go-to for this lane. In terms of stats, you want to go for early move speed and armor. Now, I'm very specific about just armor and move speed and not plated steel caps or ninja tabis, because Ninja Tabis is not that good into Aatrox, since a lot of his damage isn't just from his auto attack. In fact, like, most of his damage is just through his Qs and abilities, and there's like maybe 30% of it is through his auto attacks and just his passive auto attack. This basically means that if you go from cloth armor and boots to plated steel caps, you're not going to be blocking that much more of his damage. So you'd be better off just spending that extra 500 on like a chain vest or something, because that extra armor is going to go a long way in dealing with this matchup. He really is like an AD caster rather than an auto attacker, so that armor is better than just straight up plated steel caps. Now, move speed is always necessary, so we got to have boots. And I just sit on the boots for the entire lane, right? Just don't upgrade it unless you need something for the rest of the enemy team. And I'd only go Tabis if both the enemy top, aka the Aatrox, and the jungler was also AD. So if it's like a Aatrox Rengar, then Tabis might be a great idea, but you don't have to necessarily finish out boots for the lane. In terms of the other items, the other stats that kind of help is HP. HP is pretty good. Executioner's Calling, which aka anti-heal, is quite decent, but it's not exactly necessary, because if you just play the matchup well, you don't actually need the anti-heal. But it's like, if you're really struggling, if you got the armor and HP already, it might be like a last-ditch choice to just help you win the lane, right? The thing with Executioner's Calling is it's just gonna delay your mythic, so you only buy it if you know you're gonna get kills with it. If you don't, then Aatrox gets his first mythic, and then you're just basically like screwed out of the fight because he has a mythic, and then you have just a bunch of stats. Now, in terms of just how the lane plays out, I've already talked about it, but basically speaking, you got to dodge his abilities. If Aatrox gets every single Q on you, especially the sweet spot areas, then you're just completely boned. Like, the way, like, to understand how this matchup goes, you're gonna understand how Darius wins fights and how Aatrox wins fights too. They're very similar in terms of their, all-in sort of rhythm, if that makes sense. So, these champions don't kill the enemy within one rotation, right? You don't kill them with, as Darius, RWQ. You kill them with RWQ, then you wait, and then you kill them and finish them off with the next RWQ, right? I don't mean like the combo, but just you need 2 rotations of WQ as Darius to kill the enemy. Same as Aatrox. You use your Q, W, E, and then you finish the enemy off with your next Q that comes up when the cooldown is down, okay? So that is the rhythm of both these champions. Very similar. But the difficulty for Darius comes in that Aatrox greatly outranges Darius. So if you walk in and you get hit by a Q, not only does Aatrox have damage off on you, but he has set up for his other Qs, and you haven't even started your own combo. So he's going to be basically done with his first rotation, and you're still like halfway through your first rotation, which basically puts you behind and makes it so that the lane is like the fight itself is quite hard to finish off and win in general. So what you basically want to do is bait his abilities out. There's literally no other way to run at him and kill him. You gotta bait them out, or force him to use his abilities and then dodge you using your ghost. The thing with Aatrox is that every single Aatrox player plays it entirely uniquely, right? Some Aatrox players will do like the first QE combo from max range to basically get the damage off on you without you being able to retaliate. Some of them will Q the wave and then Q2 E towards you, and then try to make sure that they get you inside that Q2 because if they don't, you can just hook them with your ghost. And like, you have to basically just turn your eyes on and read what the Aatrox is doing. How does a specific player play Aatrox? And then like, see how they use their Qs to poke with you. See how they use their W, especially because if an Aatrox player uses a W, you can literally just run at him. Because Aatrox W sets up like 2 of his Qs if the Aatrox player is smart. So if you get hit by his W, or like, I mean, if you get him to miss his W by either dodging it or him like landing on a minion instead of you, then just that's your green light to go ahead and kill him. Another green light is if he E's towards you, then this is another big sign to just go and kill him. But ultimately, you gotta just juke his Qs, right? When he does Q1, juke to the sides. When he does Q2, you can either juke back or juke towards him to try to dodge it, but then you'll still take the damage. And Q3, you really gotta not get hit by the sweet spot of this, so be really unpredictable, okay? Don't be like a bit predictable with your movement. Start an auto attack and then stop it and then keep moving so that you bait his Q, whatever, right? Just dodge his Qs and go for fights when he wastes his W and his E. Now, the good thing about this matchup is that if you get 1 or 2 kills, it's pretty easy to just put him down repeatedly. If you get Stridebreaker, it's really easy to just stop him from moving around and squirming. You can just put him down quite easily. So, like, Stridebreaker is really the mythic that you gotta get if the matchup is still even. But you could go for Triforce, and I wouldn't recommend this for the 1v1 because if you go Triforce, you don't really have any tankiness, and you don't have a slow that you can use to, like, slow the enemy down to give yourself a bit more artificial tankiness, because if the enemy is slower, they can't really get as many attacks off on you, right? Or they can't really kite you that much, which basically kind of lets you survive longer, right? So Triforce doesn't give you any of that. And what this basically means is that if Aatrox gets a decent amount of damage, like he's only 2 kills behind, but he gets a decent amount of damage, like you have Triforce boots, and he has Eclipse or something, or some lethality, whatever. He will be able to kill you, actually, with his damage, right? So, like, be very careful with how you build against this guy, because he does do, like, decent damage if he's not like 3-4 kills behind. And yeah, I don't think there's anything to really discuss about this lane. It's just a skill matchup, to be honest. In low ranks, Aatrox are gonna waste their abilities, so you can literally just basically find kill opportunities every minute or so. In high low, this doesn't really happen, but what I do is I just bait their abilities with like cannons or whatever, or like I basically just play the game like an idiot. I read how they use their abilities when it doesn't matter, and when it does matter, I actually just turn my brain on and counter the way they've used their abilities the entire lane to just kill them, or at least get an advantageous all-in. Anyway, that is the Aatrox matchup. That's the Aatrox matchup. Let's go into Akali. Now, Akali is also within the similar tier of skill matchup in their favor, but you're really gotta understand how this one plays out. So, Akali isn't really a threat pre-level 6, okay? So you have to basically get kills on her. Actually, I'll just go through the structure because I already forgot the structure, but it's not really that complicated. The runes won't really help against Akali, right? It doesn't really matter what rune selection you go for because you just gotta play better to beat her. Now, for me, Sorcery Tree is better because it lets me move up to her, catch up to her, all that good stuff, but really you can live with Resolve a second win as well. Like, your runes and what you build doesn't really matter nearly as much as how you play. Same with items. Like, if you're really struggling, you can go for a Sweeper if you can't track her in her Invis, or if you want MR, you can go for Negatron Cloak, and specifically Negatron Cloak, because you need magic resist against her. And Mercury Treads, you buy the item for the Tenacity, which is absolutely useless against Akali. So just get the sheer MR if you're struggling, but again, items and runes don't do much in this matchup. How you play the matchup do like impact it severely. So anyway, back on the discussion, the matchup basically goes like this, okay? Akali is insanely weak in all-ins pre-6. Like, she really struggles to kill you if you have your brain on. Like, unless you completely mess up your RW, you miss your Q, then maybe she kills you. But if you land your abilities, it's not really that much of a problem, right? Now, the point where she does become a problem is level 6 and onwards, because Akali's ultimate gives her one of the biggest power spikes in the entire game. Her power spike is astonishing. Like, she does an insane amount of damage, and her mobility means that not only can she just get out of any terrible situation, but she can also catch up to you if you've kited her. Like, let's say you ult her and then she's just going to bleed to death. She can just ult towards you no matter how far the distance between you two is and just kill you anyway because her ultimate just gives her a very balanced amount of mobility. Now, let's go to the tips, right? So, first off, kill her pre-6, as I said. Level 1, she's an absolute free kill. So if you can get her in your W range, an RW cheese kill will work wonderfully against the Akali. Now, what you can also do is if the Akali pushes up, in that, like, she's cleared the first row of the melees, and now she's walked up to, like, clear the row of the range minions. If you do this properly, when she's, like, walked up and you haven't taken damage until this point, you can hook her, ghost, and then just attack her to death as she goes back to her turret. This is, like, a disgusting tactic that only works in a few matchups, and Akali is just one of them. And most Akalis don't take flash, so if you do this, and the Akali is, like, a bit too aggressive, then she's kind of helpless to just, like, defend herself when you're killing her like this. So there are multiple cheese strategies you can use against her level 1 to kill her. If that doesn't work, just kill her normally with your abilities. Like, her shroud thing is a bit annoying to deal with, but on the bright side, if you get stacks on her, each tick of the bleed will basically highlight her silhouette in the W shroud. So just follow that shroud as to where she's going. Don't get juked by her, because what Akali players love to do is they go one way, right? You follow her, and then she goes the other way and escapes. Don't let her do this. Sweeper helps a lot with this, but then again, if you know how Akali players move, you should be good to go by just following that little ghost. And, yeah, there's nothing really to advise on, like, killing her pre-6, right? Just, yeah. Look for opportunities where she wastes her Shroud or her E-Shuriken jump. Like, those are the key opportunities of her weakness, but still, you just kill her. A combo that's quite useful is the EQ combo, right? Because what can happen sometimes is that if you just go for a raw Q, Akali can just E out, right? Or even Shroud, and the move speed is going to help her dodge your Q. You don't want to let her do this, so EQ combo is going to be a big, big friend of yours. As for fights after 6, you basically have to just rely on your summoner spells. Even if you are, like, 2 kills up on the Akali, she can still 1v1 you with her ultimate and ignite. It's just that broken, right? So you really have to just outplay her ultimate with your flash to have a chance of killing her, okay? Now, it's not that difficult to burst her down because Akali is so squishy that if you get 5 stacks and ult her, she's practically just dead. But you really have to avoid at least, like, you know, one of her... You gotta avoid, like, the second ultimate, you know? Like, her ultimate 1 is going through you, and then ultimate 2 is, like, dashing, like, wherever she wants. She doesn't have to target it. She can just dash in any direction. So you gotta just, like, dodge that second ultimate. The way it works is that, like, she dashes, and then once she completes the dash, that's when the damage is applied. So if you, like, flash in the middle of it, if you react to it, you should be able to avoid the damage. And also another clean thing is, and I've only done this once in my entire life, but because of how it works, and that she has to complete the dash, and then the damage is applied, you can essentially hook her out of it if you predict it. And I've done this, like once or twice in my life. I remember vividly once, and I might have done it other times, but it's possible. Though it's not something you should rely on, so just flash out of it. Like, you fight her, whatever, she's gonna ult towards you, then you flash Q, W, ult, and then she's dead, right? Another big tip is to don't fight in her Shroud, because she can get a lot of cheese attacks off on you. Her main damage is, like, her Q and her passive all attack that comes from her Q, so don't let her get many of those off, and you should be good to go, in my opinion. The next champion we're going to get into is Akshan. Now, Akshan is not really the most difficult matchup there is. You basically just have to understand what his kit is capable of. So this is a matchup where I'd heavily advise you to go into the League Wiki and read about. Just read about all of his abilities and exactly how they function, like exactly. Because it's not like a matchup they can effectively counter by knowing kind of what he does. Because there are some mechanics in his kit that will absolutely destroy you, or some mechanics that will be used to counter him that you wouldn't know if you didn't know everything. So just make sure you read up on every single thing that he does. Now, let's just get into the little stats. In terms of runes, you basically need either Second Wind or Sorcery. Sorcery if you're kind of confident about killing him. Second Wind if you just want to basically sustain and be a bit more defensive. Now, regardless of your rune choice, you gotta go D-Shield in-game, because the way Akshan pokes you isn't through, like, big pokes every once in a while, but it's just a little pokes constantly, right? That's, like, the thing. It's not a quality thing in terms of how much damage he does, but a quantity thing where he does damage a lot, right? And on many different occasions, if that makes sense. So this is where D-Shield comes in. It's quite useful, especially in conjunction with Second Wind, if you're going to go for the more defensive option. In terms of other items you should pick up, I really think that Plated Steel Caps or Ninja Tabi is literally like the only thing you need to be able to kill this guy. In truth, you can basically kill Akshan at any point during the game. You kind of just have to understand how exactly he works, so let's just get right into it. First off, I'm also going to reduce him from 5 to 4 as I'm describing it. So yeah, first things first, do not take easy poke from him. Akshan's Q, his boomerang, if that's his Q, doesn't really work like a normal ability that just stops the minions. It goes through minions, and it keeps going as long as there are minions for it to hit. So it can theoretically go on until the end of time, like infinitely. You can theoretically have infinite range. So be very careful with how far back you stand behind your minions. Because if there's not enough distance, he will be able to toss the boomerang out, and he'll be able to hit you once and then twice when he comes back. So you don't get hit by that poke. Also, when you're farming, and against range matchups, you sometimes give away some of your HP for CS, you have to be careful of how many auto attacks you give him, because Akshan doesn't just auto attack once. He auto attacks twice with every single auto attack. So you can very easily get his press the attack within like a blink of an eye, especially if he has some attack speed. So be very careful of how much you let him auto attack you in these kinds of situations. Be very quick with how you CS. Now, the key thing to understand in order to beat this guy is how his grapple hook works. The ability where he shoots to the wall and then he spins around. You basically want to either hook him out of this or make sure that your model is inside of his model. Like when you get ghost, you can pass through objects, so you can pass through units. So what you basically want to do is when you're ghosting towards Akshan, you get your auto W, don't Q, just stand inside of him. Like make sure your model is inside of his model. Because if your model is right there on top of him, it doesn't matter how he grapples, there will be collision. So if he runs into a champion or like a terrain, Akshan stops his grapple, and this is exactly the type of thing we want to basically trigger, right? Obviously, you can just do this much more easily by canceling his grapple with your hook, but that's a different matter. It's very vital that you cancel his grapple hook, because this is literally all of his damage. All his like burst, sick, like single target damage comes in from his grapple. So if you can take care of it, that's basically him dead. You could just easily run him down. Now, the difficult thing with the matchup isn't quite what he's capable of doing to you, but more so that you'll never be able to match his roam. Like his roaming is way too powerful. He can do it at any point in the game. Whenever he has prio, he is going to be able to roam into your jungle, into your mid lane, even bot lane in some cases, but I don't think you should do that because it's too much of a distance to walk. Could just lose too much CS. But still, right? It's still possible. So make sure you're very aware of where he is on the map so you can ping your teammates, and make sure your wave control is on point so that when he does roam, you can punish him, okay? In terms of how to start the all-ins, I'd say honestly just, like, if you have Ghost, just run towards him, right? Just run towards him, and when he grapples, hook him to cancel it. If he keeps the grapple, right? If he's keeping it and just fighting you, go up to him and do auto W, but do not use your hook, okay? And don't use your Q. If you use your Q, you're leaving space between him and you, and he can use this to grapple away. If you use hook, then you've just used your hook and you can't cancel his grapple anymore, right? Because the thing about blocking his grapple with your own model is that it can sometimes not work, because if you're like in front of him like this, he can just grapple and spin the other way. Okay, so you don't want to let him do this, and don't waste your hook. Don't use your Q just yet. If he doesn't use his grapple, just auto attack him to death. You can literally just auto him to death because his all-inning is not that great. As we said earlier, his damage is in his grapple hook, and then use your hook to cancel that. It's not like the fastest thing in the world, where the grapple itself is pretty quick, but his movement is kind of slow. So you should be able to get him with your hook, no problem, as long as you aim it properly, right? So, yeah, that's pretty much it with the matchup. Nothing really too complicated. Alright, the next champion on this tier list, or the guide, is Camille. I'd say Camille is in the easy win category, and I'm going to explain why. So rune-wise, there's not really anything that's necessary to take. It's not really a matchup where runes or items are going to save you. You got to just play better and understand the matchup fundamentally. In terms of items, it's also similar. You can go for plated steel caps, which makes the all-ins a bit easier, because instead of having a chance of killing you with Ignite, now she has no chance of killing you. But honestly, if you just play better, right, if you just land your abilities, you should not need like plated steel caps at all. And I guess late game, Stratbreaker does help, but I'll explain why it helps. It's not necessary, but it does help later on. So let's just get into the discussion portion. Now, Camille is not really a matchup that's too much of a threat at the earlier portions of the match. She can't really kill you in all-ins at all, and it's like, if the Camille hookshots into you, then she's basically signing her death warrant, because you can very easily just destroy her. Camille doesn't really have any good sorts of mobility aside from just the hookshot, okay? So, understanding this matchup is understanding how her hookshot works, and specifically, how to cancel her hookshot. Because yes, Darius' hook can cancel Camille's hookshot. Now, Camille's hookshot has multiple portions. The part where she shoots the hookshot out, she moves to the wall, and the part where she jumps out. Now, if you hook and it lands on her while the hookshot itself is still not on top of the wall, then her movement will override your hook and she'll still go to that wall. However, if you time your hook correctly so that it only hooks her, who pulls her back while she's moving, then you'll cancel the entire ability. And if you can pull this off, Camille is 100% dead. Okay? She has no counterplay. She just dies instantly. So, key to this matchup is understanding how you can do this specific mechanic consistently. Okay? Now, you really want to just go for all-ins, non-stop, whatever chance you get. Obviously, don't force things, right? Because if you overforce, you're just going to die to a jungler, or you're going to take a few bad trades because you're wasting your abilities, and you won't have the mana to fight, whatever. But just be careful, but try to be really aggressive, because you really don't want her to get on top of the wave. If Camille can Q the wave, she gets a lot of move speed, which lets her actually poke you down with her W, right? And the thing about her W is that it kind of outrages your kit in a way, and you can't fight against it. And even if you hook her out of it, she can auto-attack you, she gets her passive shield, and then she just hook shots out. So technically, if we count everyone who dealt damage in that trade, you would just straight up lose that trade. Because by using her hook first, and not canceling her hook shot with it, you're basically allowing her to disengage and actually use her shield to the fullest, while she actually does damage to your HP bar, okay? So these sorts of trades can be lost, which is why I originally said that, you know, you can go for Second Wind or even Deep Shield, but it's really just not difficult. Just go for Deep Blade, be aggressive, make sure she does not get on the wave, and just kill her, okay? Now, the way you should fight all-ins is like this. So, ideally, you want to get her in melee range for an auto-attack W, or at the very least, just a W, okay? Once you get that slow on her, you basically have to walk right up to her and walk her down with auto-attacks. Just spam auto-attacks. Do not Q, because if you Q, you can't hook her. So while you Q, yeah, you might land the Q itself, but you won't be able to cancel her hook shot, which is like the important part of this entire all-in thing. So don't Q, okay? Now we wait for her to hook shot, and once she hook shots, then you use your E hook to pull her out of it, and crucially, you go for an EQ combo, okay? Now, the thing with Camille is that once level 6 gets hit and she has her ultimate, she can ult on top of you and dodge your Q for free. Like, she's untargetable while she's in the air and she's like jumping on top of you. So you really want to go for those EQ combos, because it's like the only way you can guarantee that you land your Qs, okay? So again, walk up to her, auto W, auto, Camille hookshot, hook, EQ, right? Hook into Q, you land it, and then she's gonna ult into you, trying to like dodge the Q, but she's not going to. She's going to make sure she's in more attackable range, and then just basically just kill her. At that point, it should just come pretty naturally what you're supposed to do. But that is how you should be ideally playing all-ins. Now, the matchup does get a bit different once Camille gets her first Sheen item, her Sheen Mythic, because she now has the power to actually burst you down. What most Camille's will try to do is they'll stack up their Sheen, like Triforce or Divine Thunder, by the way. They'll stack up their Q on like some minions. They'll go in on you. They'll Q you, burst you for like most of your health, walk away, and then do it again. You don't want to let her get away, okay? You want to make sure that the second Camille gets in your range, she can't actually disengage, because that's how she basically plays the all-in out. If she's fighting you from beginning until the end, it's very hard for her to actually put you down without you just killing her with an Oxymite. Now, if you do miss your Q, and you get like kited around a bit, it is a bit difficult, but it's just like, you know, if you use Stridebreaker, if you use your hook properly, if you use your W slows, and crucially, if you use your Ghost move speed to kite her, as she's trying to walk up to get her empowered Q on you, because you can actually do that, then the fights shouldn't be that much of a difficulty to win, even in the later portions of the game. Now, she will outdo you quite a bit, because she has way more mobility, right? And that mobility, that burst, everything leads to Camille being such a menace once she gets her first mythic item. But, you know, all the periods before that happens, you're basically in advantage and in the driving seat of the lane. Now, Camille is also very good at setting up ganks for a jungler, so be quite careful of where the enemy jungler is, okay? Get your wards up, track him, because it doesn't matter where in lane you are, Camille can just get on top of you, ult you, and at that point, you're just kind of screwed, right? All you have left to do is fight and hopefully get 1 kill, or even 1v2, but, you know, it's not that possible to do 1v2s when you're, like, fighting against people who are competent, right? So, yeah, that's the Camille matchup. Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia is quite a difficult matchup. I'd say she's in the... Come on. She's in this tier specifically, and it's just one of those, like, matchups where the entire thing revolves around a Q. Now, runes-wise, you can go for... A rune and build-wise, you can go for basically 2 approaches, right? You can go for mobility to dodge her Qs, catch her, and kill her, or you can go for more defensive runes and setup. Now, defensive is D-Shield, Second Wind, we go for early MR, like we go for Merc Treads, we go for Spectre's Cowl, Negatron Cloak, everything, right? But the mobility is basically just like gambling that will kill her in an all-in, right? And we go for Sorcery, we still go D-Shield because you can't surround this lane without it. And you go for an item that you don't actually build into many other matchups, and that is Boots of Swiftness. You straight up just rush Swifty's first item. What this will let you do is 1, you'll be able to much more easily dodge her Qs. 2, you will be able to actually catch up to her and hook her. Because once Camille misses her Q, like she can't buy boots. She's quite easy to just walk up on hook and then just kill. Okay? So Swifties basically unlocks a really huge portion of the lane for you if you got the mechanics to actually support it. Okay? So there's 2 kind of approaches you can use on this lane, but generally speaking, it's quite tough because the Cassiopeia can constantly spam Qs, right? She constantly spams Qs on the wave, on the lane, everywhere. And if you get hit by 1, your life is over. Because Camille gets move speed, gets everything. And she just basically spam easy you over and over again, builds up Conquer in 2 seconds. And that's like 40% of your health just gone. And then she can just W, guaranteed to land the other one, it's just over, right? So it's like a very disgusting lane to play as Darius, because you don't have to just dodge 1 Q, you have to dodge all Qs. Any single Q that you get hit by basically gives her a ton of power out of nowhere. If you fight Cassiopeia, again, I messed these up, but if you fight Cassiopeia, melee range, and she lands her Qs, she will beat you. Melee range. Like, it's like a crazy thing to even think about, but it is actually a fact. So it's just a bit of a rough one. I personally just go for the move speed thing, just gamble, alright, I'll just dodge this and try to kill her. If I lose, it is what it is. I'll just buckle up, get some sustain, whatever. But it's like, it's such an annoying matchup because, like, even if you kill her a few times, she still gets to be annoying, right? It's like, until you kill her like the 3rd time, then you can just, you know, put her down without really worrying too much about whether she lands your Qs or not. But it's like, man, those few 2 kills only, like, are possible against Cassiopeia players who aren't really that aware, because it's not that hard to land Qs on Darius. He's not really that fast. Anyway, Cho'Gath. Cho'Gath, I'd say, is like a free matchup. Like, there's really nothing to understand about this matchup to really beat him. There's not really any runes you gotta take. There's not really any items you gotta build. All you got, I mean, I guess if you lose to Cho'Gath, somehow, you can go for Divine Sunderer, but that's not really that necessary, right? You just gotta basically kill him. That's it. Like, the only thing you gotta watch out for is basically not get hit by his knock-up. And the thing with Cho'Gath is that if he goes into a bush, he can get the knock-up on the ground, and it's much more, like, difficult to dodge it because you don't see Cho'Gath's, like, animation for it. You just see the rupture itself. So your number 1 goal is to make sure that you get vision on him, and then just dodge the rupture. And if you dodge that, it's like the easiest lane ever, because there's nothing Cho'Gath can do to stop you from killing him. Nothing. Except the rupture. Just dodge it, he's dead, right? So there's nothing really to think about here. Just kill him. Okay, Darius doesn't. Okay, Dr.Mundo. I'd say Dr.Mundo is like, this is a matchup that a lot of people have a difficulty with, especially low elo people. So I'm gonna basically get into how you can kill this guy. Now, Dr.Mundo, like, he's a difficult to beat matchup if you're like asleep, you know. like the key to killing this guy is basically just focusing on the game and never stopping your focus. Now, there really isn't anything that's too necessary to beating Mundo, but if you want to survive a bit longer, I guess, and if you're not too confident about your ability to dodge hatchets, then you can go for a second wind and combine it with a D shield. But I don't really go for any of that. I just go for like a D blade sometimes. Sometimes I'll go for a D shield because I'm going sorcery, but still, right? It's like having one of the two, I guess, is like a good guarantee, but it's not really that necessary, right? So the way to kill Mundo is, basically speaking, to not let him land his Qs on you, okay? That is key. Don't let him toss hatchets at you and have a chance of hitting it. Now, how do you do this? By standing behind your minions, okay? If you stand behind your minions, he can't hit hatchets on you. And this is the key. You're mainly going to operate right behind your minions, not a bit behind, right behind. Why? Because you want to be able to respond to Mundo when he gets into the melee range of your minions. That is key. If Mundo's just way back, tossing hatchets in, you can't interact with him. But the second he goes in melee range to either wave or something, that is when you go for all-ins. You walk up, auto W, and you go for the Q. While you Q, you walk behind your minions so you can't hit the hatchet either, and then just kill him, right? Just ghost around him and put him down. It's not really that difficult to kill Mundo in all-ins. It's just literally about making sure that you pay attention to how he can Q you, right? It does help to get better at dodging, right? If you eat every single Mundo Q in the universe, then you're obviously going to lose this matchup. But if you just stick to the fundamentals and stand behind the minions, it's not really that difficult to just put this guy down. Now, if you do lose, Divine Sunder does work, right? If you get into a late game situation and you have Divine Sunder and some tank stats, then you should be able to just straight up kill tank items. You should be able to just 1v1 him without a problem. Mundo is not really able to just burst through Divine Sunder. It's really just strong against him specifically. If you're even and you want a snowball, Strikebreaker is a great choice because you don't actually need to land a hook on him to start the all-in, right? You can just Q Strikebreaker and then just go for the all-in without having to get into melee range, so that's pretty powerful. If you have mana to burn, you can always go for a hook on him, even though he has his passive up, because basically speaking, if you hook him, he can't get into melee range because he'll just hook him and kill him, okay? So he has to basically wait out his entire cooldown of his passive, which is, I guess, like, I think it's like a minute or so. So it's like a pretty long thing to just wait out. So yeah, that's like a key way you can actually get instant priority in the lane regardless of what's happening. But only do it if you have mana to burn, because earlier on, Darius' hook costs a lot of mana and he doesn't have a great mana pool. Okay, we got Fiora. Fiora, I'd say, is like one of the most skillish matchups in the game. It's a bit in her favor, but it's a really hard skill matchup. Now, in terms of runes, there are obviously two routes like usual. Because Fioras of nowadays go for Grasp, having second wind and D-Shield is actually quite a solid tactic, because a lot of them won't even go for her vitals. They'll just Q on the spot and use it to land Grasp ball attacks on you from like far away. So to be able to like counter that, I guess, going for second wind and D-Shield is like a great solid combo. You can also just go for D-Shield and have like a sorcery, or if you want to fight earlier on, you can go for a D-Blade, but I'd recommend just like sticking to the more sustained thing, because if Fiora is not really a champion you can actually fight earlier on. If the Fiora is intelligent and actually has hands, then level 1 and 2 is going to be really difficult to get kills on her. Unless she gets like unlucky vitals and you're just a really smurf and make sure she doesn't get any, like you won't be doing too well against her. So I would say don't gamble your early levels on trying to kill her. Just don't, okay? It's a waste of time. And if you lose, it's going to be really bad for you. I'd say wait for level 3, and then go for more intelligent all-ins from that point. Items-wise, play the steel caps, bread and butter. You have to get these. Strikebreaker is also great into this matchup because it really slows her down and lets you basically maneuver around her quite a bit. It also basically lets you chase up to her, because the thing about Fiora's ultimate is that it gives her a lot of move speed, so she can just disengage. So that is perfect too. Now, lane-wise, like I said, level 1, 2, we're chilling, nothing too much. And from level 3 on, then we're looking for all-ins, right? Obviously, just if she's like pushing in a massive wave into you, don't maybe go for an all-in, but that's like your judgment, I guess. Anyway, so how do you want to play the all-ins? First off, memorize how Fiora's vitals spawn. You can't beat Fiora if you don't know how her vitals spawn. I made a video on her, right? I think it's called Darius' Worst Matchups. I have a picture in the thumbnail, so go look that up along with some of the few other matchups that suck for Darius. But like, go watch that video because I explain in depth how all this works. Okay, But basically speaking, know how her vitals spawn. Okay, that is absolute fact. If you don't know this, you'll just keep feeding her vitals nonstop, and she's just gonna win for no reason. Okay. Now, another key thing is do not get hit by her riposte. Her riposte is one of the most overloaded abilities in the entire game. Okay, so get used to dodging it. A lot of Fioras will basically use their riposte to block your Q. So what you can do, right, is auto W, auto attack W, Q, walk this way, she's gonna riposte, and then just walk the other way. This is much easier to do with Ghost, obviously, so you can dodge her riposte with your Ghost. And the thing is, once she misses her riposte, that's it. She is just, like, not gonna be able to fight you at all. Fiora's riposte slows you, it slows down your attack speed. It's just such a mess to fight if it lands on you. But if it doesn't land, if she misses it, that's literally all of her defense gone. So just Ghost and run her down and kill her. Obviously, make sure you don't feed her vitals, but it shouldn't be too difficult to kill Fiora once she missed her riposte. Now, one thing is for sure, don't be predictable with your hooks, please. Because if Fiora ripostes your hook, she stuns you for 2 seconds, which is a lot of time. Enough time for her to just get every single vital of her ultimate off. So yeah, it's a great way of just instantly dying. So don't be predictable with your hooks. Same with your ultimate. Now, against Fiora, because she has a riposte, you don't really want to, you want to be very careful with what you do with your ult. You can either ult early to block, to make sure you get some damage with your ultimate. You can save it until she uses riposte to finish her off. You can, if your W or Q after the riposte is going to kill her, you can just use the ultimate with 5 stacks to get the riposte out, position for the WQ, and then just WQ kill her. It's like, you think very carefully of how she's going to use her riposte. I mean, you're going to use your abilities to either use them early, use them after, or use them to bait her riposte out and force her to use it so you can actually get other abilities to kill her with, okay? So be very deliberate about this. I don't think there's too much to say, right? There's also the tip of, like, if she has an ultimate on you, stay with your back against the wall so she can't actually get that vital, because she can't get into the wall, she's not Kane. But aside from that, there's really not much to say about this matchup. It's really a skill matchup. It's a very big test of how nimble you are on your feet and how much you understand the game, and also how much you can predict her. Because Fiora is one of those matchups where every single Fiora plays it differently, so you guys just understand, like, the body language of the specific Fiora you're up against, and then just, like, oh, she used her riposte, and she does actually use my riposte to, like, block my Qs, so I'm going to actually just, you know, make sure I land my Qs, whatever, right? It's like, just understand how she uses her abilities and count them one by one. Our next matchup is Gangplank. He fits snugly between these two tiers right here into the hard win category. Now, GP's difficulty really scales very hard with how good of a player the Gangplank himself is. So if you're in low rank, the Gangplank is going to be basically a free kill over and over again. But a higher Gangplank who uses their battles to zone you off a farm properly, who spaces properly, who uses their Q properly and cancels the animation to walk back faster so that he doesn't get caught by your hooks while you're trying to walk towards him. That kind of Gangplank is going to be basically impossible to get kills against. Now, there aren't really any runes or items you can go that'll make this matchup easy, but just a bit more playable. First off, you can go for Sorcery or Second Wind. Either case works, because you can go for, like, Conquer Sorcery if you want the extra sustain. You can go for, if you want the extra move speed to be able to catch him with hooks. You can go for Conquer Resolve if you want to be able to sustain from his poke. Like, he's a champion who's definitely going to get poke on you at some point. He just has a way too good poke, so I'd really recommend going for at least Doran's Shield, even if you're going for Sorcery. In terms of item builds, the thing about this matchup that kind of sucks is that Tabis aren't really that good against him, because his, like, barrels kind of cut through armor, and he has a ton of 2 damage with his, like, passive, and also his Q. I think it counts as an ability, so it doesn't get cleaved by, like, the 12% auto attack damage reduction that Ninja Tabis have. So Tabis aren't too useful against him. Armor is okay, but you mostly just want to go for HP, right? Have Kindle Gem early, Ruby Crystal on first back, and you can kind of just go for a Stridebreaker Rush. Stridebreaker Rush makes the lane much easier, because if you can get Stridebreaker on top of the GP, he becomes a lot more feasible to just kill in fights, because a lot of what's difficult to fight GP is basically the fact that he gets a lot of move speed every time he hits a barrel, and you're slowed. So if he hits the barrel, you're slowed, he's fast, he can very easily just juggle you around and then just kite you into oblivion, whereas Strider can kind of solve this. If you really want to cheese kills early, you can also go for like a Swifties. Swifties will basically mean that your all-in power is severely diminished. You have less stats. You spend 900 gold on just move speed, but the move speed itself is super high, and you get the slow resist. So even if he hits you with a barrel, you'll still be able to move around quite a bit. So if you just want to cheese kills, right? You have sorcery. You want to go for even more move speed to just land your hooks. Then you can go for a Swifties into Strikebreaker into the rest of your build depending on what the game needs. But that's really dedicating a lot of your build to just the Gangplank. So be careful when you're going for this, because the rest of the team might be tough to deal with as well. Now, one key thing you gotta understand about this lane is that all of Gangplank's damage is his barrels. So another thing that you should probably build in terms of stats is attack speed, because attack speed is super important to kill his barrels before he can shoot them or order them to blow them up, okay? So, like, in all-ins, if you get hit by, like, 2-3 barrels, you're just gonna lose. Even, like, if you, like, start to fight full HP, you hook him, RWQ, whatever, if he just keeps hitting his barrels and getting the empowered auto attack off, then he's gonna be able to barely kill you with Ignite and his passive true damage. So, really be careful with how you mess around with his barrels. Don't let him hit them for free, or don't let him hit them at all. Use your auto attacks, your auto attack range to basically stop him from, blowing them up on you. Now, one trick that you can actually do to catch the Gangplank, aside from just Ghost running up towards him and killing him, is basically speaking, what a lot of GPs will do is they'll put the barrel down, wait for it to tick, and then that's it, right? If you walk up into the range of the other barrel, he just puts the other barrel down, he autos this, you get slowed, he walks up, shoots you, and he walks back. And because you're slowed the entire time, you can't really fight against that. Basically, what I want to do is when the Gangplank puts the barrel in a bad position, you just straight up run towards the barrel, okay? Straight up run towards the barrel and towards the Gangplank. Now, this is basically where the minigame starts, okay? Now, our goal isn't to actually kill the barrel, but to hook the GP. But because the GP is, like, directly interacting with the barrel, you'll be able to get, like, a better angle off on the hook on him if you were to just run up to him, right? So, because Gangplank has to stand still and hit the barrel, you might be able to get like a tricky hook on him. Now, you will tank the first barrel, but this is basically a way of just engaging the fight, okay? So if you're desperate to engage the fight and just beat him in it, you don't have that many enemy mini waves accumulated by the Gangplank, then this is one of the ways where you can actually just engage on him. Because if the Gangplank auto-attacks the wave, he doesn't Q, he auto-attacks it, then you will 100% get the hook. So he Qs the minion, he puts the barrel down, then you just run towards him, and he's 100%, this is his psychology. Gangplank players hate to have other people destroy the barrel. They'll hit them as much as possible. So we're basically exploiting the fact that they want to kill their barrels as much as possible, because if they have their Q down, and they have their barrel, they just put it down newly, then he'll be very incentivized to attack it. This is when you come in and hook him, right? So yeah, you can also do a trick where instead of trying to last hit the barrel with one auto attack, you do auto W when it's at 2 HP points. This way you'll be able to just kill quickly before you can even attack it. There really isn't too much complicated with the wave. It's just that the simple things that happen in lane are annoying to deal with, right? This is why this lane is kind of annoying. You want to basically play the lane like this, okay? So level 1, if you can get into melee range with him, cool, kill him, right? If you can do a W cheese, these are very effective against him. If you can, I don't know, if you really want to just cheese him with lethal tempo, I guess you can go for it, but I wouldn't really recommend that. But generally speaking, right, you don't want to mess with him too much level 1, because level 1, he gets like his Q, which essentially works as like a range auto attack, okay? So just stay out of his like Q range and only walk up to CS when he's like forced to Q for the minion wave, because like he can't really wave clear properly without his barrel, so he's forced to waste his Q on the wave. So he uses it to farm normally anyway because it gives him more gold, but anyway, right? So once he uses Q, they walk up farm, but don't really just take that free poke. You do this for until level 3, and until he crashes the wave into your turn, okay? I know we're not going to have Prio, but this is not really a lane where you can have Prio if the Gangplank player is sentient. Once you're level 3, you're now strong enough to kill him, right? And assuming you've not taken any poke damage previously, if you get the hook on Gangplank, you can basically just kill him in an all-in if you land your Q, and like maybe if you try to avoid some of the barrels, or you don't have to get like, you have to dodge every single barrel, but you should avoid at least one of them to make it possible for you to kill him, right? So look for all-ins for level 3 onwards. Your ultimate makes the lane really nice because GP doesn't really have a lot of tankiness, so you can very easily just one-shot him with your ultimate, especially if you have a Strikebreaker. Strikebreaker is going to make this lane so much easier, right? Because you don't actually have to land your hook or whatever, you can just save it until the other portion of the fight when he does trickily get away from you, just get back here and finish him off. But yeah. So TLDR, don't be too confident earlier on. Like, try to understand how exactly he wants to play the game and exploit what he wants to do against him to be able to kill him. Okay? Like, his Qs are faster than his auto attacks, so right? It's like, you guys get the idea from all this explanation. Just try to pick fights when you are able to fight into a smallish minion wave, when you have all your abilities, when you have your ultimate, when you have Strikebreaker, these key power spikes that you want to exploit. And it's quite a snowball lane, so if you kill him once, it's going to get way easier to kill him. Like, you can kill him like 2 times, and from that point, it doesn't matter how many barrels he lands, he's just going to die. And there's a disgusting thing you can do where if you have Stride or even Triforce, you hook him under turret, like he's trying to farm on the turret, you hook him, auto WQ, and just walk out. And this does like 40% of his health, basically. You do this like 1 time, and the second time you do it, you can just basically kill him off of it. So yeah, it's a very easy lane to just get kills off of a snowball once you do kill him, but if he's competent, you're not going to kill him because a good Gangplank is basically going to be super, super careful with how they kite with their barrels. Our next matchup is going to be Garen. I'd say Garen is just a mostly free matchup. Like, there is one case where he can kill you, but you practically are just, like, stronger than him in every single other case, provided you actually are, like, conscious about the lane and are paying attention, okay? Because he can get some nice cheesy kills off on you, but if you're paying attention and you're perceptive, you're like, all right, like, you know, I see through your tricks. You can't do anything to me. And thankfully, Garen doesn't have many tricks, so it's not that hard to just outplay him. Now, runes-wise, there's not really anything, like, too necessary to take into him. Like, is there anything that you need? Not really, right? You could just go for, like, a sorcery to have more move speed. You could also try to go for, like, a bone plating, I guess, but if the Garen is smart, he's going to take it out with his E, Q, run away, but then you can just kill him. So I guess you can take bone plating, but I just go sorcery and snowball. In terms of items, really, there's nothing really too necessary, right? I guess you can go for a Strikebreaker, might be useful, but again, it's not really necessary. So you basically just got to understand that all of Garen's damage is through his E, the spin. That's all of his damage. Everything. So if you can just, like, use your ghost and your slows to kite it, or at the very least make sure that, like, you're not the nearest unit to it, because the way it works is that the nearest unit to Garen while he's spinning takes the most damage. So as long as you guarantee that you're not that unit, and you can guarantee that even, like, if you're not that unit, or in the best case scenario, you're just completely out of his E range, that's basically it. Because Garen without his E is literally nothing. That's all his, like, entire kit's riding on at this point. So if you avoid his E, he's a free kill. Now, there are some cases where with Ignite he can cheese kill you, right? If he lands his full E spin on you, he ignites you, the ultimate after will kill you, right? So be careful of that. But aside from that one example case, like, you can basically kill the Garen at any point in the entire match, okay? You have way too many tools, he can't stop you from getting Noxian Might, and you basically just one-shot him with Noxian Might, so it's, like, not really a 1v1 that ever goes in his favor, unless you, like, start losing kills. Now, it does get annoying. This is partly why I put him into 2 instead of 1. It's really annoying to fight Garen when you're in a team fight. Because in a team fight, he's not the only person dealing damage. So if you're trying to fight the enemy ADC or whatever, and the Garen's purely playing backline to, like, mitigate your impact, he can essentially just execute you with his ultimate when you're trying to do some sort of play. So Garen is annoying from this sort of case. He does kind of counter you in a teamfight setting if you basically don't have any help, if the Garen is, like, you know, has a strong team. But aside from that, you really should be snowballing off of this guy every single time. He really is not a threat in any way. So our next matchup is gonna be Gnar. I'd say Gnar is like I put him in like the 5 tier, right? No kill lane, farm lane. This is like the tier where it's like, it's just boring, right? Because if this is an ideally played lane, no one is gonna snowball. everybody has the tools to just chill and farm the entire time, and Gnar can kind of stop Darius from farming, but the thing is his poke is kind of pathetic, so he can't really do it without committing too much, which basically gives Darius the means to actually start a fight and kill him. So it's just a boring farm lane, so don't really expect too much from this one if the Gnar player is actually intelligent. Now, build-wise, there's nothing really specific. Like, you can go for second wind to help out, right? It is quite useful. You can also go for sorcery if you want to be able to catch up to him and catch him actually and kill him. I wouldn't really recommend strongly either way. It's just preference. In terms of items, plated steel caps are quite good, and Strikebreaker is also great because Strikebreaker can let you basically slow him down and then kill him. I think that's pretty much it with builds. There's nothing really specific. It's gonna be like, oh, that's a silver bullet to this lane. It's just about the way you play. Okay, so basically speaking, with Gnar, the lane is killable earlier on, but the thing about Gnar is that as he levels up, his range in his mini form increases. So it does get to a point where you're practically never going to be able to catch up to the Gnar, because he can just constantly slow you and auto-attack you. So the name of the game is just getting as many kills as you can until he gets to that point. Now, if he's tilted or whatever, you'll be able to kill him until the end of time and then just be super fed if you win lane, that is. But if he's still smart and you suddenly cheese kill him once or twice, it does get to a point where you no longer can kill him. So don't be upset or tilted that you can't really snowball off him. This is just how the lane is. So focus on killing the rest of his team. Now, one thing to understand is that his boomerang stops after a certain range once it passes through a minion. So learn that range and stand behind it so you don't take too much damage while trying to farm. Generally speaking, just understand how it works so you can dodge it, because a big part of how he can basically poke you down is land the boomerang and then auto-attack you, because you'll be slow to the point where you won't be able to catch up to him, right? And a big thing that Gnar can do is basically every time you're trying to go for a hook, he can just jump away. And that's basically the annoying part of this lane. If you're trying to catch up to the Gnar and kill him, his jump is good. If there's a minion behind the Gnar, you won't be able to actually catch him, right? Because what Gnar can do is just jump on that minion, get 2 jumps out, and that range is so massive that even if you have Ghost, you won't be able to catch up to him, or he just gets away. So, there are certain conditions that you have to basically keep in mind if you want to go for all-in fights against Gnar, okay? And, the key thing in this matchup is your positioning. So first off, if Gnar has no minions behind him, no units behind him, go for a fight. This is crucial because Gnar's 1 jump is actually not that massive. The 2 jump is great, right? But the 1 jump is not that massive. So if you have Ghost, and crucially you're not slowed by his boomerang, even if he jumps away, you should still be able to catch up to him and hook him, okay? So, or even if you use your hook initially, you can basically W him as he jumps so that he still has a slow on him or the Strikebreaker, and then catch up to him that way, okay? So if he has no minions or units behind him to jump on, then you'll be able to catch up to him even if he jumps away. Now, in case he does have a unit behind him to get a good jump off, you're basically gonna rely on canceling his jump. Now, it's easier than it sounds because his jump isn't really that fast. It's pretty slow, and it's pretty predictable how it travels. So it shouldn't be too much of a it shouldn't be too difficult on your reactions to just hook him and pull him out of his dash. Okay, so the way you want to start all-in is kind of simple. You basically want to make sure that you start the all-in without sacrificing your hook. I know this means that we basically can't fight him without our Ghost, but that's just how it is. Now, obviously, if the Gnar is dumb, and he gets your melee range without you needing your Ghost, then okay, free kill. But if he's kind of smart, the only way you're going to be able to actually catch up to him is get into weirdish positions and just run up on him with Ghost. Q, run up on him. You might not be able, you might not want to Q because the Q gives him opportunity to just jump away, because while you Q, you can't hook, right? So you might want to just run up to him, auto W, and then the second he jumps, just hook and cancel it. Or there's another trick you can do actually, and this works a lot against lower elo Gnar players, where they know that they can jump on a unit and get away, right? So this is something that gives them dopamine. What you do is you basically let them push up, and then you walk around the lane or whatever, and then you just walk behind them, right? And just keep walking behind them, and then they'll get in some sort of bush, and what they'll try to do is jump on you and jump towards their turret. This is like the big dopamine thing in their brain. And that's what we're going to exploit. Because Gnar players in lower ranks, not the higher rank ones, unfortunately, like, they can't help themselves but do this. And the thing is, right, if you just look at how the jump goes, like, it's easy, like, imagination, where if he jumps like this, then you just hook to the continuation of that line, and as he's in the air, you just pull him back on your melee range, and then you can go for RWQ, auto, ult. And the thing with Gnar is that he's really squishy, so it's quite easy to just one-shot him if he's in his mini form. Now, the thing about this massive form is that you're not actually going to be able to kill him, right? His big form with his passive is like, he can only die, you can only kill him if he allows you to kill him. Because he has his jump, which is a larger range, and he doesn't actually need the condition of a unit to jump on. And he has his ultimate. So at any point, when you're fighting him, he can just, if the fight just goes south, he can ult you away or into a wall and then just jump away. And that's like enough space and enough CC to the point where you can't actually do anything. And worst off, he's going to get some other like abilities on you, so he's going to be able to basically win the trade and get away. And his big form gives him some health, so it's kind of like a sustain thing. So all in all, like, you don't want to mess with him too much when he's in his large form, okay? If you can dodge that line stun thing, land some Qs, that's fine. If you can maybe stand behind minions, don't get hit by that rock, that's fine. But don't expect kills when he's in his large form. If he jumps in on you, right, he wastes his jump to engage on you, then I guess he just deserves to die, so put him down. But, like, it's not going to be a common thing unless he just wants to die. Or he falsely thinks he can kill you, and then you just land your abilities, dodge things, mess him up. But yeah, his large form is not where you're looking to kill him. His mini form is. So just, like, look for opportunities where he mispositions and punish him for it by basically pushing up and then casting his jump with your hook. So, the next matchup is going to be Gragas. Now, I'd say Gragas is like... Just look at my notes. Gragas is like a skill matchup in his favor if the Gragas player actually knows what they're doing. Because Gragas has every single tool in his kit needed to survive this lane and get to a point where he can just constantly poke you out and then not have to deal with, like, anything that you can do, right? He can basically operate outside your range completely, and when he does get in your range, he'll just hit you with his instant CC and phase rush away, and you won't really have any way of, like, hooking him out of it. Tenacity doesn't help, because his belly slam is not like a stun, but it kind of like moves you. It's kind of like a displacement, so there's no way of reducing that, so that, yeah, I'll build tenacity, but if you belly slam, I'll just hook you out of it. No, it's like, it doesn't really work like that. Now, in terms of runes, you can go for either sorcery or second wind. It doesn't really matter. Both work. In terms of items, you gotta go D-Shield. Shardbreaker also helps massively in this lane, actually. Like, it's a huge thing. But it's mostly down to how you play the game. Like, that's like the important part in terms of beating this guy. Now, generally speaking, like, the way you want to play this game, first off, read his abilities, right? I know he's a funny character and he's pretty old, but you got to really understand how his abilities work in order to get a better idea of how to fight him. So get on that Wikipedia and just read all the notes. Now, because he can put such a distance between you and him using his phase rush and his, like, belly slam, you got to be very careful about your positioning, okay? Now, the thing with his belly slam is that when he first off, he can't do it through minions. So if he walks up to the minions, always just trade against them. If he walks up to the minions, RWQ or just WQ, just hit him with anything, because he's giving you the opportunity to just mess him up, okay? But the way it works is that he slams into you, and you move like this. You move in the direction that he slammed in. So if you hook him, right? Let's say you hook him. Don't just go for an RWQ, because within that RW, and while you're doing Q, he's just going to slam into you. The Q's going to miss. He's going to get phase rush, and he's going to get out of there. What you want to do is hook, and then just walk, right? Hook, and then walk, I guess, at least to the side of him, or ideally behind him, and then start auto W, walk down Q, okay? You want to make sure that you want to give him, like, an awkward belly slam, if that makes sense, right? And by an awkward belly slam, I mean that this is his turret, this is him, and this is you. A good belly slam is like you're standing like this. He belly slams you, you're far away, and then he runs away. An awkward one is you're like to the side of him like this. His turret is right here, and then he slams into you, but he sort of pushes you kind of towards his exit. So he either has to walk down, which is still in your range, or he has to walk up, which basically lets you catch up to him with Ghost and then just kill him, okay? Doesn't leave him with a lot of options. So pre-6, that's kind of how you want to play All-ins to get kills. Now, post-6, he gets his ultimate, which is, like, not something that's too, like, counterplayable. It's fast. There's not a lot of dodging you can do because of, like, the massive area of it. And it's basically like a guaranteed disengage for him if he messes up his positioning. Now, on the bright side, he only gets one of them. So if you can do what I basically described and just, like, force the ultimate once, you can just kill him, like, the next step because he won't have his ultimate to disengage from you. But, yeah, the way you kind of want to deal with his ultimate is, number one, be very careful near his turret. Because if you're near his turret and he ults you into it, you're just dead. Like, you are so dead because, like, not only is he going to deal damage to you, but chances are, like, you're going to be hit by the turret, right? You're just losing health and you're probably going to get put down. So be very careful when you're next to his turret. That's number one thing you got to be aware of. Now, the way you deal with Gragas' ultimate is being very unpredictable with your movement, okay? Gragas players, they map out your movement, they want you to be in a specific position, and then they ult in a specific area. So by the time you get there, it blows up and it pushes you to where they want you to be, okay? They don't like, it's like a predictive thing. So if you suddenly walk down, this ultimate is either gonna not land at all, or it's gonna push you in a position that's not really beneficial, or that's not where the Gragas wants you to be, okay? So when it looks like Gragas is gonna ult, he's doing the big thing, then, like, just switch up your movement. Just so that you're unpredictable, and that he can't exactly get, like, the perfect thing with his ultimate, so he doesn't get, like, the perfect combo, or put you on his turret, or the perfect position for him to get a kill. Now, ultimately, this is one of those lanes where it's, like, just sustain and survive, I guess. Like, if you get a few kills on the Gragas, it's good for you, but eventually it's going to get to a point where you won't be able to kill him, because Gragas starts tier, his passive gives him health. This really is a matchup that you could just sit back and Q spam into. You can't really do anything against it, so yeah. Not a very snowballable matchup, I'm afraid. Now, a thing you can actually do that's quite, if you're very perceptive, is that you watch the Gragas player, and you learn how he belly slams, okay? The thing about belly slam is that you can cancel it in the middle of it with your hook. So learn how he belly slams, and then try to hook while he's doing it so that he remains in place and, like, that he gets phase rush, but him, you know, because he's remaining in place, that phase rush most of it is just wasted. And you can use this to basically just catch up to him and kill him with Ghost, right? But most of your kill opportunities are going to be pre-6, so use that as best as you can. But later on in the game, unless you severely outplay his ultimate, then you won't be able to get too many kills against him. Our next matchup is Graves. Graves is mostly a free matchup. He doesn't really have a lot of range. His mobility exists, but it's not too great, especially against Darius. So, yeah. There's not really any rune choices or item choices you need to specifically build. If you're that scared, you can go for D-Shield, I guess, but it's not really necessary. I just go D-Blade and maul this guy. Basically speaking, Graves has a very low all attack range, which puts him in your hook range, okay? So we can literally do level 1 is hook him and just auto him to just walk him to his turret, like if he starts Q. If he starts E, you can't do this, but just try to gauge the situation, okay? Once you get your QW and to level 3, he is basically a free kill. There's nothing a Graves can do to stop you from just hooking him and killing him. Nothing. He's just like a sitting duck at that point, okay? So I guess just land your hooks. That's basically it. And since you have Ghost, you don't need to land your hooks. You can just run up to him, W, Q, auto, and then just hook him when he tries to get away. So, yeah, there's not really any sorts of... Yeah, I didn't even write anything in the notes. There's a trick you can do where his attacks are not really targeted attacks, but they're like an AoE effect in front of him, okay? So what you want to do is when you're in the middle of a fight that you won't just win straight up, you basically walk behind the minions and make sure you're fully covered in terms of your hitbox by minions. This way, Gers gets no attack damage on you, which basically means that he won't be able to do anything to you, right? Aside from just Q. So that's like a really nice way to turn fights around if you're in a bad fight somehow. And another thing, don't actually stay in his W. His W is really weird because the way it cancels vision cancels your ultimate and basically all the point and click things. So the second he Ws you, walk out of it as fast as possible. You don't want to be in that longer than you have to be, okay? So that's Graves. The next matchup is Gwen. Not really a popular champion, right? I haven't played against Gwen in a while. The one time I do remember, I just completely stomped her, but I think it was in one of the videos where I just, like, I think she killed, like, I was level 2, she was level 1, and she somehow kills me, but then I just completely destroy her later on, so yeah. Okay, Gwen is kind of a skill matchup in your favor, but I'd say she more so belongs into the easy win tier because of how much weaker she's gotten over time, okay? But I guess she can kind of just cheese kill you with ultimate. Like, her ultimate power spike is really big, so I guess I'll just put it in a 4. Anyway, rune choice wise, there's nothing really specific you gotta pick up. I just go sorcery to give you more mobility because you gotta be nimble on your feet. Item wise, like, Gwen is one of those champions where there's not really a counter item you can build against her. Like, she basically deals every type of damage, physical from all attacks, magic, and true damage. So there's not really, I guess health helps you against her because, like, health is the only thing you can build against true damage. But it's like, there's no sort of resistance item that you can build to just get tankier against Gwen. You just gotta kill her, okay? Or avoid her damage with your mobility. Like, okay, so let's just get into the tips. This is like a really cheesy matchup, but the name of the game is to basically kill her before level 6. Gwen has one of the best level 6 power spikes in the entire game. It's like, if she has Ignite and Ultimate, and she lands everything on you, she will straight up just body you. Like, straight up, 100 to 0, no problem, okay? This is the kind of champion she is. Like, she just spams everything on you. And she also heals, which makes it quite difficult to just burst her down and put her down. So, be very careful around level 6. Our goal is to kill her before level 6. Now, the thing about Gwen is that she has this mechanic where every time she autos the wave or autos you, she gets an additional attack or snip, I guess, in her Q, I think it is, right? Snip. So normally it's just 2, but she can get extra ones if she auto attacks the wave. Now, you basically don't want to let her get any auto attacks on the wave because the more of these she gets, she basically gets the right to start the fight with this really quick source of damage that heals her, that deals a ton of damage, okay? So don't let her get on the wave. Make sure that you can keep her off the wave as much as possible. The thing about her is that if she can't get that stacked Q on you, then she's basically easy to kill, okay? So, first tip, don't let her get on the wave. If she has her fully stacked Q up, then just kind of respect her space, okay? Don't mess with her too much. You can maybe win all-ins if you're ahead, but if it's like an even thing, you're basically looking at starting the fight against a person who's using Ignite with, like, 300 of your health just gone instantly. So it's not really a good prospect. Now, if the Gwen doesn't take Ignite, just ignore everything I say and just kill her. Like, without Ignite, she cannot put you down. So just body her. I don't know. But yeah, I'm basically going to treat the matchup like she's taking Ignite because that's what all Gwens take, as they should. Now, never raw Q into her. By raw Q, I mean, like, just start the fight with Q because she can just dash into you, right? And then just nullify it. And you're going to need your Q against this matchup because of how, like, sustained fighty she can be and how stat baller she can be, especially with her W, okay? So EQ combos are going to be your best friend. But more so than that, flash Qs are going to be your best friend. Because the way Gwen is, it's like, she basically puts a lot of her damage in front of her, okay? So if you do auto W, she stacks her thing, and then she starts to dash at you, and then just Q to the side of her, then you dodge all of her damage, you land your Q, and then she's basically just destroyed. So that's what you're trying to, like, look for, okay? Just using your flash in a way where you avoid a fully stack Q, or like the third thing over ultimate, where she tosses, like, all the needles out, right? You're trying to flash Q that, something like that, right? So you're trying to use her flash to outplay her, blah, blah, blah. And also her Q. So her Q basically deals, like, true damage in the very center of it. So you want to make sure to at least have the magic damage part hit you. Because if you stand in the middle of it, you're just going to get melted, bro. So either dodge it completely or at the very least don't stand in the middle, okay? Now, aside from that, there's not really much to really say. I basically covered everything, but one big tip is that her damage really sneaks up on you, right? Her damage isn't really like... It's one of those champions where it's like, she's going to kill you out of nowhere, and you're like, whoa, what happened, So don't underestimate her damage, okay? She does pack a punch. It's not like a big punch, but it's like 100 little punches, right? And it does add up. So, like, don't underestimate her damage, okay? Respect it. Don't tank it. Don't be like, she has 5 stacks on her. Surely I'll just one-shot her. Don't be like that. Just don't stop focusing, okay? So, yeah, that's Gwen. Now we're going to talk about Heimerdinger. This is probably one of the worst matchups in the game for Darius, simply because of how it works in general and the extra things that Heimer has in his kit, which basically makes Darius' life a living nightmare. Now, in terms of runes, there's not really anything you can take that's going to make this lane winnable. You can go for, I guess, some move speed to help you out in some specific circumstances, or a second wind, and you're definitely going to need second wind and D-shield to have some sustain in this lane, but honestly, like, having barely won this lane, it's straight up one of those no hope type situations where, like, the case where you kill him is so rare that I'd rather just, like, completely give up, buckle down, and just farm out and play for team fights, because it's just that difficult to actually play this one. Now, if you're, like, serious about trying to fight him and kill him, you do want to pick up a lot of magic resist. You want to go for Merc Treads because he does have a stun. You want to go for a Negatron Cloak. That MR is going to be super, super useful. Just, like, a ton of magic resist as soon as you can. And this might sound complete cheese, but I might even recommend going, like, a Force of Nature first item or something cheese like that, because this really is a truly dark hole of a lane. Now, the issue with this, like, matchup is that, basically speaking, Heimerdinger's turrets and his general range with his abilities means that if you get into the range of, like, his shot grenade, which is, like, really long range, then he's gonna, like, you know, aim it at you, and even if it doesn't stun you, like, only, like, the outer area hits you and you're slowed, his turrets will still get the max charge of, like, the beam attack, and they'll all target you. And because you're slow, you're not going to be able to, like, dodge them. So, like, that also happens with his rockets, but at least since you're not slow, it's a bit easier to dodge. But still, like, he can do disgusting things. Like, he tosses the shock grenade on you, the turrets do the beam, and then he W rockets you, they beam again. And if you get hit by all that, you're practically, like, you're not dead, but you're just barely dead. And Heimer can also poke you down under a turret. He can also just mess with you the entire time. You can't really run him down or anything. And in a lot of all-in scenarios where even if you do catch him, like, you want to basically hook him when you can, but even if you do hook him, he can't just go, like, stopwatch in his runes and then just put the big turret down, and that's just going to kill you on its own. This really is, like, a really bad matchup for Darius to play against, and Heimerdinger also gets the bonus move speed near his turrets, which, like, I'm really wondering what Riot was thinking when they added that champion. It's not like he's being played any more than usual, like, before they added him. But yeah, it's like a really annoying part of him, because you're never going to catch up to Heimer. Like that move speed buff near his turrets means that even if you have Ghost, if you, like, just Ghost run at him, he can just shock grenade you and walk away. So literally the only thing you can do in this lane is sit out of the range of all his abilities, take some poke here and there, go full sustain, and then just be really eagle-eyed for opportunities to hook him, okay? That's literally all you can do. Now, the thing that's good about the matchup is that once you do hook him, he's really squishy. Like, it doesn't really take that much to kill him. If you do RWQ, auto, ult, auto, or something like that, like even a 4-stack ult and then an auto attack or 2 after it, it's enough to kill him. But it's like, man, like, getting that hook on him is such a nightmare of its own. So it's like, it's not a matchup that I think's too fun. Now, there are a few things you can do. So you can try to cheese him earlier on. This is kind of like a risky thing to do, right? But basically speaking, Heimer's turrets, though they can kind of burn you down early, if you can get the jump on him before he's had time to set them all up, you can kind of just run him down. So if you can get a W cheese going, or maybe even go something like a lethal tempo, and then just hook him level 1 and just go for a rundown, something like that could work out. But it's all just cheese. There's no, like, a legitimate way you can win this lane. And ganks are not really going to help too much either. So it's, like, just a hopeless one, and really not a matchup you want to be fighting as Darius. But on the bright side, it's, like, quite rare to find someone who mains Heimerdinger, because the only people who play Heimerdinger top are people who one-trick Heimer anyway, and they just got filled top. So, yeah, sorry that I don't have a lot of good news, but it is called the automatic lose tier for a reason. Our next tier is gonna be Illaoi. I'll put Illaoi in the skill matchup, I guess, but I'd say it's like somewhere between here. You know, in my experience, I eat Illaoi's up nonstop, but I can kind of tell how if the Illaoi is really good with how she places her tentacles, she can be a bit of a pain to deal with. So I'll put her in here. Skill matchup in your favor. Okay, so how does the matchup work? The matchup is quite simple. Okay, if the Illaoi, okay, actually let's just go into the runes structure and all that. The runes don't really matter. You go for second wind, it's kind of helpful against her poke, but I'd rather just go for the move speed and go for D-shield in game. Her little like tentacle attack, her Q, I think, is kind of long range, so you want to either have the move speed to dodge it regularly or just be able to sustain through it. So yeah, in terms of items, there's not really specific like things you should get. Like, I guess Triforce is kind of necessary because you gotta just one-shot her. Divine Center could also work, I suppose. But again, it's not really like something you have to go, but just the way you gotta adjust your playstyle that really matters. So anyway, back to the gameplay analysis. If Illaoi lands her E, she wins the all-in. If she misses her E, she loses the all-in. That is as simple as it gets. Okay? Now, this is like given that she is level 6 and has her ultimate. If it's pre-6, then Illaoi just straight up loses. Literally just walk up to her and fight her and kill her at any level. She cannot fight you at all. So just, I guess unless you're pushing a wave under her turret, but you push it so it crashes just outside her turret, and then she had the foresight to put down 2 tentacles on both sides of the walls already, so she can just, you know, go all in on you like that. That's like the one specific instance I can think of where like she might be able to put up a good fight against you. But aside from that, it's just like you should be able to kill her like 1, 2, 3 times at least before level 6. Now level 6 is when the thing I basically mentioned before applies. If she lands her tentacle thing, her E, then she wins. Okay, so when she lands that, you basically don't want to mess with her at all. Just walk out of the entire range of it, and then dodge the tentacles. Okay, that's the best you can do because Illaoi, like the more you stay in it, the more damage she's gonna get off on you for free. Okay, and since the tentacles after you like leave the thing are so easy to dodge, you shouldn't really have a problem. Like it's a better call to just leave the area of the the spirit thing from her the soul tentacle thing. Now there are multiple ways to bait this, so it's like you can try to just see how she likes to E. You can flash it. Flashing it is always worth it because the thing about Lillia is that she's so immobile and they don't take ghost. So if you just flash her tentacle, even though she has her flash to get away from you, because you have ghost, you'll be able to keep up with her anyway. So it's like, it's not too bad of a thing to flash her tentacle. And if you can't flash, just like try to juke it, I guess. Walk one way, walk the other way. Don't ever be like melee range with her. Because if the Illaoi is good, she's not gonna miss that. So just try to make sure that it's like a long range so that you can kind of see the animation and then just walk out. One thing you can also do is like try to walk out from your minions, pretending like, you know, I guess if there's a dying minion in front of you that you want to CS, you walk out of the protection of your minions. By the way, you want to stand behind your minions for most of this lane. Since her tentacle can't go through units, you basically want to hide behind your minions so you don't get hit by them for free. But the way you want to bait it is like, let's say there's a low HP melee minion. You walk out of your own minions, acting like you're going to CS it, but then once she starts her animation for her tentacle, then you walk back into your minions, and it just goes towards and kill her. So, yeah, pretty boring matchup because regardless of who's ahead, it all hinges on Illaoi's E. Like, it's really just crazy, okay? Because, like, the Illaoi could be 2 items ahead, and you'll still kill her if she misses her E. Vice versa. You could be 2 hours ahead, and she'll still kill you if she lands her E. So this really is like a messed up matchup that's just kind of weird to play, but I don't know, it's just how it is. So yeah, the reason I'm putting it in 4 instead of 5 is basically that the whole early game thing, where as Darius, you're basically guaranteed to kill her like pre-6, so just exploit that part of her gameplay. Up next, we got Irelia. I'd put Irelia in, I guess a similar tier as Illaoi, because it really also does revolve around her E, which is like her stun thing, right? She puts the 2 blades down, stuns in between them. So yeah, in terms of rune choices, there's nothing really too specific that's necessary, I guess. She does do a lot of poke. She can get your bone plating off easy, so that's not useful. I guess you gotta go sorcery because it's the only thing that's like consistently useful, which is move speed. And kiting is gonna be quite useful in this matchup in general. So I wouldn't really like sleep on sorcery that much. Now, in terms of items, this is actually interesting because Tabis aren't the best against Irelia. I'm not sure if this is the case, but Aurelia's passive does magic damage on all attacks, right? I don't think Tabis reduces this magic damage at all with a 12% thing. So the better anti-Irelia item to buy is a Warden's Mail. Like, Warden's Mail straight up does more against Irelia than play a Steel Caps or Ninja Tabis. So if you're struggling in this matchup, go Warden's Mail first. Like, that's way better here. Now, in terms of mythics, I guess you can go Stridebreaker, but it really doesn't really matter too much. If you just dodge her E, she's basically dead. And once you kill her 2-3 times, she's dead anyway, because if Aurelia's behind, it doesn't matter what she lands, she just basically dies. So, the difficult part of this matchup is, again, the fact that she has her E. This ability makes it really hard for you to put her down, because if she lands it, she instantly kills you. But on the other hand of the coin, if she misses it, she basically has no way of putting you down. So you really want to be just playing around this one ability. Watch like champion spotlights of her and memorize the exact animation of it, so you can actually expect it and predict it. Most good RL players, like bad RL players, will put the E down, hold it, and then put the second one down. This is so easy to dodge because you can just see the first one and then just dodge in relation to it. But good RL players will just do tac like one after another, right? Just instantly. So you got to be really expecting what kind of ease she's going to go for and try to be a bit unpredictable in your movement. Like, the second she uses her E, then you bust your ghost and then just run out of there, and then you run back in to kill her. Or something like that, you know? Just, like, try to understand how you can dodge that ability. Because it's not really something that's easy to dodge, because the ability doesn't really come from Irelia, if that makes sense. It kind of... She puts the first one down, and then the stun just comes from that area, if that makes sense. I don't know, it's just weird, but just get used to it, okay? Now, you kill her level 1 pretty easily. If she, like most loyal area players, would just Q on the wave, just rank W, just all in her and kill her level 1. She really can't stop you, unless you eat too many attacks, which is a issue, I guess, instead of an ish-me. And I guess that's pretty much it, like, straight up. Like, it's as simple as Illaoi. Just avoid her E, kill her 2 times, and then Irelia is basically a free kill every single other point aside from that, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it for the Irelia matchup. Alright, the next matchup on our list is gonna be Jax. Now, Jax is not really like an easy matchup to deal with Darius for sure. And I know some of you guys in the lower ranks might disagree because Jax is not really well played there, but if the Jax player knows what he's doing and he doesn't really waste his Q or E, then it's quite tricky to deal with him. So I'm going to put him here in the hard to win category. Now, in terms of runes, you basically want to go for Conqueror for sure, and there's not really much you can go for. I guess you can try to get like a bone plating thing going. That could be quite useful to make it so that his first initial trades into you aren't too powerful, right? You can go for that. Sorcery also works too, but I'd rather just go for the more meat from bone plating. In terms of item builds, this is where this kind of becomes a bit impossible, because regardless of what you actually build, the Jax is going to be able to beat you eventually. Once the Jax gets Divine Sunder, once he gets Bork, he basically just wins the 1v1 regardless of what's going on. So it's like, you can kind of try to go for a Stridebreaker, I guess, to kite him better, but I doubt it's going to make too much of a difference because the Bork slow is just going to be a bit devastating for you to deal with, because especially since he has like got a low cooldown dash by that point anyway. But anyway, laning ways. Laning wise, you're looking for, well, first off, Jax takes lethal tempo a lot, so you got to be very careful of just going for all attack meat matches against him. You really can't out all attack fight him, okay? So just get that out of your mind. Second, be very careful of how many passive stacks he has up. If the Jax doesn't really stack up his passive, that means he's kind of bad and inexperienced, so you can exploit that to go for favorable all-ins. If he hasn't fully stacked up, then he probably knows what he's doing, and you should just like let him push the wave in, because stacking up your passive basically means that you gotta constantly shove the wave in as the Jax. Now, the part of this matchup that's so difficult to deal with is that the Jax has basically two important abilities that stand in your way from killing him, right? His Q and his E. So you kind of have to get rid of both of these abilities to get him to a point where you can comfortably beat him up, right? Because if you don't get rid of his counter strike, you can't land your W on him, which is really bad. And if you can't get rid of his Q, then you won't be able to land your own Qs at him, and he'll be able to also get away, especially if he uses a ward to jump on, like nearest turret, to escape from you. So yeah, never raw Q the Jax. He can just jump into it. EQ combos are your friend here. One big thing, there are two big things in this matchup. One not so big thing, and it is basically to exploit the fact that you have a higher aura range than him. Jax only has a 125 and 150 with his W, whereas you have 175 and then 200 with W. So just really exploit your higher aura attack range as best as you can in order to basically get him to waste his Q, right? You want to basically hit him and then back off, and so that he can't hit you, right? And like for him to retaliate, he has to basically Q on top of you, and that is when you can actually hook him and go for the kill. Because if the Jax jumps on top of you, there are two variations. He has counter strike up in terms of he's using it, or he's still keeping it. If he's using it, then you do E, Q, and you back off. Make sure he's not in auto attack range, and then you just run him down. If he's not using it, then you do E, auto, W, Q. Okay? And then you can basically just run into him, get some stacks on. Basically, he has counter strike up, he's spinning it, then you just run away from it, don't get stunned, etc., etc., etc. You got a big power spike level 6. Level 6 is actually huge for you because your ultimate being such a great nuke that it is, you can just burst him down, right? So that's a perfect little power spike for you to get some kills in this lane if the early game doesn't work out that well. But the general thing you want to do in this lane is basically just play wave control perfectly. The thing with Jax is that if you try to trade against him, you won't really be able to do too much, okay? Because even if you do the auto attack thing that I talked about to just exploit your higher range, the Jax can kind of just walk up while you're auto attacking and just do an auto attack W. And because Jax has way higher attack speed, he can basically pull that off while even having counter strike enabled, okay? So it's not really that easy to out trade the Jax in a normal setting. But what you can basically do is you basically want to play your wave so that it's just outside your turret. So when you Q Jax, his main defense is jumping on you, right? But if you have your wave just outside your turret and you Q him, he's not going to be able to do anything. He's clueless. He's helpless. In that, the best he can do is Q to the back, like the minions that are behind the frontline minions, right? Q to a ranged minion. But other than that, he has no choice but to get hit by your Q in order to get CS. So you basically want to just like put the wave just outside your turret, get good trades in, and eventually one of those trades will end up in you getting a kill because maybe he takes too much damage, maybe he lets you get 3 stacks on without him actually hitting you, stuff like that, okay? Just look for kind of trade kills from this position. Now, as I mentioned before, you really don't want to go for like any sort of build that lets you over one of the Jax. Like there's some cheese you can go where you can go anything but chains. And if you point at the Jax, you might be able to actually 1v1 him for a fair bit of time, but he'll eventually outscale you. Okay, so it's not really smart to build in a way where you're planning on 1v1ing him the entire game. Just get strong enough to the point where he doesn't just instantly kill you, and then hold him off if he's being annoying with split push, but mainly just carry team fights with your team. That is like the main way you should be fighting the game against the Jax. Other than that, there's not really too much to explain. This matchup is difficult because the Jax has more, like, he has way less things to mess up than you do, okay? Because if you open up with Q, he could just jump in on you and mess you up. If you get too close to him, he can just bash your brains in with lethal tempo. If you don't block Counter-Strike, he can get a very good trade in. So it's like, it's not that easy of a matchup to begin with. Now, another tip is that level 1, you want to basically try to hit him with as many Qs as possible because most Jax players just go Counter-Strike level 1, so there's like a nice little bit of information, but don't let him get into your melee range because if he gets his Counter-Strike off on you, he can get a bunch of auto attacks and then basically just win the trade, and you can't really fight against him because it's stunned, right? You won't be able to do anything. Now, also you can't 1v1 him because of his lethal tempo and his passive, and he also gets an ignite. So like, I mean, you can't 1v1 him level 1, right? You can't like level 1 cheese him basically. He's not cheesable. So yeah, just in my opinion, like be very patient with the lane. Don't go for fights that you're not sure about whether you're gonna win or not. Wait for him to either waste his abilities or set the wave up perfectly so that you can actually trade into him and mess around with slow pushes only, big slow pushes that are going to help you out in the all-ins that they're going to deal damage to the Jax and basically put them in more so in your favor. But aside from that, there isn't really too much here. I have made a guide video, I think, Know Your Enemy, Darius vs Jax. It's really old though. I was a worse player. I was worse at League too, at teaching as well. So maybe some of the tips don't really apply, but I do have a video on this, so look that up. It might be useful. Our next matchup is going to be Jayce. Now, Jayce used to be a really difficult matchup, but with Jayce being such a terrible champion right now, he's more so a hard win. But maybe I'd even put him into skill matchup, if I'm being honest. Because the lane play is very similar to Gragas, if I think about it. He's actually easier to kill than Gragas, now that I think about it. So yeah, okay. He's in the 6th tier, but if the Jayce is really good, it can be like around here. Okay? So where do I put this? I'll put it in tier 6, just because of how generally terrible he is, and now nobody's playing it anymore. Now, Jayce is not really a matchup that is thought of as like an easy one for Darius, but as I mentioned before, because of how sheer how weak he is right now in this meta, he is very easy to just put down. Rune-wise, you can go for either Sorcery or Second Wind, either works. Item-wise, Strikebreaker does wonders into this guy, it just completely ruins him. So if you get Strikebreaker, he should be quite an easy champion to just pick up and kill easily. Now, against Jayce, you really want to play, like, also Ninja Tabis, but the Steel Caps is pretty good against him. Just rush it first item in the lane, because he does go lethality. Jayce goes Eclipse, and they build Deserted Dirk from that Eclipse item first, so you gotta have armor earlier on to counter some of that damage. As we were saying, the matchup itself. Now, Jayce is not really like... The Jayce player has basically all the tools he needs to take care of you, okay? But if we set the fights up correctly, we can basically just stat ball him every time we have Ghost, okay? So, first off, lane starts, level 1 and 2, you don't really want to do too much. Jayce has complete dominion over the lane at this point in time. He has range, he has more abilities than you, just chill. Level 3 onwards is when you want to start looking for fights, because once you have all your abilities, your W slow and your hook, this is when you can actually do stuff against him, okay? Now, the way you want to play teamfight or all-ins is similar to how you would play against Gragas, right? Because Jayce has his swing back thing to knock you away, you basically want to hook him, and then instead of just starting to all-attack him, which basically is just going to let it lead to him hammering you away, you want to basically walk around him. Let's say that this is you, this is Jayce, this is Jayce's turret. If you hook him, you don't want to just attack here because he'll just knock you away. You want to basically hook him, walk directly behind him, and then auto, and then just walk him down. Don't go for Qs or anything that's too tricky. Just make sure you walk him down one by one and get him to waste his hammer form knockback thing. Now, there's a trick you can do where if there's a wall like this, right? Because like the hammer form knocks you back a certain distance, right? But if there's a wall here, it's only going to knock you back against that until you reach that wall. So if you were basically like doing the same repositioning thing I was talking about, where you hook and you just reposition and then you start attacking him, you can basically position yourself between him and a wall. So when he does hammer form knock you away, it's such a short distance that you can just catch up to him anyway with your ghost or even without in some cases. So yeah, because he's so squishy, you can practically just all attack him to the death. Like you don't really need to Q at any point, but like once he knocks you away, then you want to go for the Qs and stuff, okay? Also, don't go for raw Qs. I mean, not that you can hit them, but he can kind of just jump into them as well, so there's that to worry about. But if he jumps into them, he just kind of dies. Like, he's such a terrible champion right now. He is such a terrible champion right now. Jayce is a Darius counter, right? But he just sucks right now, so that's why he's kind of down bad. And I guess once laning phase is over, like level 6 is such a big power spike for you because you get the ability to just one-shot this guy. Jayce doesn't really go any HP, so you can just 5-stack ult him and he dies. So level 6 is really where you gotta take control of this lane. And if you don't win the lane level 6, it's not gonna get too pretty because you're basically giving Jayce the free sort of platform to scale up into Eclipse, to get his tier stacked up. You don't want to give him those free set things, so just take control of the lane at level 6 and then just dominate the game through snowballing off of this guy. Nothing really much to say aside from that. Let's go into Kayle. Now, Kayle is a really disgusting champion to play against, in my opinion. Like, I'm going to put her in skill matchup, right? But like, I'm very much cringing. Okay, so Kayle is a free kill before level 6. Okay, completely free kill. Now there's one thing you gotta be careful of, her level 1. Kayle okay, actually let's just get into the runes first. You can take sorcery, I guess, into this matchup. You can also take second wind if you're being a little defensive, but you gotta be completely offensive in this matchup, just really aggressive. As for items, Strybreaker is perfect. You can also go for Triforce, but you're gonna get outscaled on one shot pretty quickly, so I wouldn't really recommend that. In terms of boots, there's not really anything that's gonna help you win that matchup. You can go for I guess you could go for Swifties if you want to just cheese a bunch of hooks in, but I'd rather just go for like a boot that helps out against her team. Like, Kayle does so much damage that there's really no point in trying to build against it. It's like she does everything, man. But I guess Force of Nature helps out a tiny bit. Now that's for the discussion. Now, what you want to do against Kayle is make sure to farm her as much as possible from level 1 to level 6. Now keep in mind, level 1, Kayle with Lethal Tempo does a deceptively high number of damage in a 1v1. So if she has Ignite, Lethal Tempo level 1, she does actually beat you. I've talked to a bunch of like other champion one tricks, like a Riven one trick, right? And he's like Riven level 1. You guys know how strong this is. And he's telling me that Kayle beats Riven level 1. So it's like, we don't want to mess with Kayle, basically. Okay? We really don't want to mess with her earlier on. Now, by earlier on, I mean just level 1, because level 2, 3, 4, 5 are really the golden zones of where you want to get kills against her, because she's not only melee range, but she sucks at all-inning. Now, level 6 on, she's ranged, but she still sucks at all-inning. So you can still go for a bunch of kills against her. It's just going to be difficult because her passive gives her so much attack speed or just move speed that, like, if you miss your hook, she's just going to run you down like a dog. Like, it's like really tough to catch her. So do not miss your hook under any circumstance, okay? Don't. Just don't go for free poke that's not going to land, and don't overextend, because Kayle, like, again, she attacks so quickly, and she can like cancel their attack animation so quick because she has so much attack speed, so much move speed out of nowhere just for free, that like you don't want to be in a position where she can get free damage off on you. She can straight up just chase you down and kill you, okay? So be very careful with how much damage you let her do to you. Just use your ghost, start always with your hook, do not miss your hook, and, you know, etc, etc, etc. It's not really that difficult to actually beat her in the all-in itself, but she does have a certain level of tomfoolery she can do against you. Now, as we mentioned before, you can't really tank up against her too much, so just beat her in lane, snowball, and try to close the game out before Kayle scales. Because once Kayle hits level 16 and gets a few items together, she can basically just hyper carry 1v9 the game, right? So really, really, like, have it be your goal. If your team's fed, just farm her the whole game. If they're not fed, just like try to one-shot people in team fights and just carry the game and finish it before she can scale up. The next matchup is going to be Kennen. Now, Kennen is really a boring lane, if I'm being honest. If the Kennen is playing properly, of course. He basically has all the tools to survive in lane against you, but he doesn't really pose a threat at all because he doesn't do that much damage. Build-wise, for our runes, we basically want to go for as much move speed as possible, but there's also another alternative route where you go as much tenacity as possible. So make your pick, right? If you want to be super aggressive and you like count on yourself using your abilities properly to nullify his CC, then go for sorcery. But the smarter option or the safer option is to basically go for triple tenacity, which is legend tenacity from precision, unflinching from resolve, and then Merc Tread's first rush in game. Okay, so yeah, as we mentioned before, as items, we're rushing Merc Treads. In terms of our starting item, we're going for D Shield, and we're basically just gonna, I guess, build Strybreaker as well because he's like a squishy guy, but squishy mobile guy that we're gonna catch. But it's really not too necessary in my opinion, right? Just build against his team because you killing this guy is not that important. Okay, let's be real about that. Now, the way this matchup works is that Kennen has a lot of poke, but they don't really do that much damage. So if you just go for like second wind and D shield, and you don't just constantly have him DPS you nonstop, you should be able to sustain through everything that he throws at you. And he is a bit slippery in that it's quite tough to catch him, but if you just use your abilities properly, if you use Ghost properly, he should be a free kill regardless of what he even does against you. So level 1, you don't want to do too much. He's ranged, you don't really have any abilities. You could try to hook him and auto-attack run him down, but a lot of Kennen players will just go Lightning Rush first. Like, it doesn't rank it first, so it doesn't really matter. Now, level 3 is when things get started. What you basically want to do is be very careful of how many of the stun stacks you have on you. Okay, you don't want to give him free stuns. So if you have a stack of his passive stun thing on you, just get out of range and then come back when it's off. Stand by your minions so he doesn't get shurikens off. Just get out of his auto attack range when he has the empowered auto attack, and do not get those free stacks on you, because they're not really it's just free damage for him basically, right? And you don't want to give him that. Now, our goal as usual is to land a hook, but you gotta play things a very particular way when you actually land that hook. When you hook, don't just go for an RWQ combo, because what's gonna happen is he's just gonna stun you and lightning rush away. What you want to do is either engage without your hook if you can, or try to make sure that you time your W properly. Now, in the case that we can actually run up on him and get melee range without our hook, which is really rare, you basically want to go for auto W and don't Q. Why? Because if you give him space to stun you, that's what Q does. He's just going to stun you and run away. What you got to do is keep autoing him, and the second he's about to stun you, then you hook him. This basically means that as he stuns you and lightning rushes away, you hook him so that he's in his place. Now, if you start the all-in with a hook, you want to basically make sure to time your W with either when he stuns you or when he lightning rushes away. Now, most of the time what Kennens will do, they'll just stun you and lightning rush instantly after it. So Wing straight after the stun will practically just slow him in his lightning rush. So it's a thing I've picked up over the time. But really just time your W properly. That's the key ability here. After you land your hook, time W properly to make sure he doesn't really get away. After that point, just run him down with Ghost. It doesn't really get that complicated. If you get the tenacity, it's going to be quite sad to watch him stun you for 0.2 seconds and then you just maul him to death. So, yeah. Our next matchup is Kled. Now, Kled has been kind of getting more and more difficult over time, it really feels like. Because, it really feels like he's got so much just meat to blitz through that he can just one-shot you during all of it with Ignite. I'll put him in skill, but it honestly feels like more so in the upper end of the the skill matchup, like a 5.5 if that made sense. So anyway, the Kled matchup. In terms of runes, you want to basically go for Sorcerer, I think. Second one doesn't really make too much sense, because if he pokes you down with his Q, it kind of reduces your healing anyway, so you won't get that much out of second win. And Bone Plate isn't going to work out, because he's just going to, again, remove it with his Q, and then go in with his attacks. So, again, it's not too smart. I just like to go for Sorcery to have the attack, to have the move speed to actually kite him and stuff and keep up with him. So that's what I'm basically going for. Now, in terms of how you got to play, you have to be very careful in this matchup to not get completely messed up. First off, never raw Q. If you raw Q, he's just going to E-dash into it and then completely mess you up. Because if he lands the E-dash, you're kind of just dead. Straight up. He lands that thing, and with how it works, he's basically stuck to you the entire time. So he can get a Q off on you and get his full W off on you. And because he has so much meat, by the time it takes for you to even dismount him, he's just going to be practically able to finish you off with his shotgun, okay? If you get into this situation, you basically want to get 5 stacks on him before he dismounts. And once he dismounts, go for a flash Q. This is you, this is him. He shotguns you like this, it's like this, and you flash to the side of it and Q like this. And you're going to land the Q and you're going to be able to finish him off. So that's kind of what you want to do against Kled if you get into this situation. But hopefully you don't get into this situation, because it's really hard to play against it and even survive. Now, first off, don't get hit by his Qs. They're not that difficult to dodge. Second, use your Ghost to kite him. You got to kite him really, really hard. Do not let him land his W attacks, because they do so much damage that's just unreal, and it's so quick. So use your best kiting ability with your Ghost and Sorcery move speed to just get away from his W and don't let him get every single attack off. Now, as for landing Q, EQ is your friend. Use your W to actually help you kite him out. It's really difficult to give you guys specific tips for this matchup, because it really is just a messed up stat checking meat fest, really. Just land your Qs, kite his W, and try to understand how his E works, so that let's say he E's on you. So instead of just standing, so let's say you're fighting Kled, you normally kite this way, right? So he E's towards you. You want to basically walk away from him, right? enter the Jukas Q so that he's forced to use his E again to actually get into melee range with you. Okay? There's certain things he's going to do like that. His ultimate doesn't really change things too much, right? It's just basically like a way for him to get into your melee range. He can dodge your Q with it, but I think that's a bit of a waste for it because he can use it for so much more. Now, items are where this matchup really gets better because you can just build plated steel caps against him, and that makes this matchup so much more playable. Like, so much more playable. So get Ninja Tabis as quickly as humanly possible, okay? You could also go for Divine Sunder. Because Kled has so much HP, Divine Sunder actually just packs a punch against them. So it's like quite a decent item against them. The fact that his Q cuts healing might not be too great, but it's not the worst thing in the world, right? Divine is quite decent. Stride also works. If you're even or even ahead, Strider is going to do wonders. I wouldn't recommend Triforce into him. He will just melt you if you get Triforce. So yeah, that's the Kled matchup. The next matchup we're going to get into is K'Sante. I'm going to put this in even as well. Now, K'Sante's got a lot of tricks in his up his sleeve, but we're going to get right into how you can basically beat this guy in lane. First off, runes. It doesn't really matter too much what you take. I mean, sorcery kind of works fine if you want to keep up with him. You can also go for Second Wind. I actually recommend going for Second Wind and Revitalize or something like that. And then going for a Doran's Shield in game, so you can have as much sustain as possible. Because K'Sante's whole thing is that he excels at short trades. Okay, so if you can basically prepare yourself to not get short traded or be on short trades as much, that's basically half of just the lane itself right there. Don't get messed up by your short trades. In terms of items, there's not really a boots choice that makes this lane easier. I guess you can go for Tabis against them because that's a lot of his damage, right? But you generally want to just play differently and beat him through just playing. Now, in terms of mythic choice, you can go for a Stridebreaker. If he starts to win, I guess Divine Sunder also is a perfect item choice. It's going to be really useful against him, actually, because he's such a meatbag. K'Sante gets so tanky later on in the game, like 3, 4, 5,000 health. So Divine Sunder helps you melt this guy. So that's definitely a big pickup that you can get. Even if the lane is even, but at that point, just go for normal items and kill him anyway. Okay, so how you want to play this lane is quite simple. Don't go for short trades, go for all-ins, okay? Not short trades, all-ins. Level 1, you can't do too much. His Q basically keeps you at bay and it slows you so you can't even all-in him. So just chill level 1. You basically want to look for all-ins level 2, level 3, up until level 6, and even at level 6, okay? The thing is, K'Sante's all-in is not that good. It's good. It's pretty good compared to a lot of champions. He's pretty stat-bally. It's pretty annoying. But compared to Darius, it's not that good. So you got to basically focus on making sure that you don't take bad trades. It is really easy to take bad trades against K'Sante. You think you're going for an all-in, you think you're going for a short trade, but no, he's just messing with you because he has that unstoppable ability that just lets him escape. So really, this is really important. Go into K'Sante's champion page and read everything. Understand how every single ability works. Literally. I know they fit like 50 passives on every ability because I don't know why they do it. I guess they just want to torture top laners, but basically speaking, just read every single passive. Because his thing where he his Q, the third one that knocks you up and pulls you towards him, I think there's a way where you can do it where he just kind of flips you over him or something like that. I don't know. It's just so weird. And can push you with his W, I think, to then ult you under turret. It's there's so many tricks in his arsenal, so much cheese. It's just you gotta just be familiar with all of it. All of it. If you're not familiar with it, then he's just gonna trick you and kill you. And if he kills you once, he kind of just gets kind of unkillable. He has to kill you 2-3 times for you to truly just never have a hope of killing him. And just he gets so tanky that not even your team can put him down. But you really don't want to get killed by this guy because he does snowball quite a bit. Now, I guess, yeah, just learn about his abilities, play the wave to your side of the lane, and then just go for all-ins. That's basically it. The way you use your flash Q is going to be quite key in how you win all-ins. He has a lot of mobility. So your hooks and your Qs have to be on point, okay? Now, no K'Sante is actually going to E-dash into your Q because they don't want to actually get into your melee range. They'd rather just dash out and then Q you and Kayle you. But I'd only go for Qs with hook or after he's used his dash to guarantee that I actually, get the Q on him. Now, when you're chasing him down, one thing to understand is that unstoppable ability is going to be used by him to predict your hook. So when he's doing that block thing, instead of hooking him, W him. Because even if he dashes out and finishes it, if you put W on him, he'll still be slowed by the time he leaves it, which basically lets you walk up to him and hook him back, and then just basically put him down. So yeah, to summarize all the tips, get used to his tricks, know all the mechanics of his abilities, right? Don't go for short trades, go for long trades, and play the wave to your side of the lane. Also be very careful with how you go for all-ins, because if you goes towards him and he Qs you, the slow is going to basically just destroy the momentum of the entire all-in. So just wait for a Q or two. Or like wait for like him to waste a Q on the wave before you go for a ghost all-in, because then you can cleanly just run up to him and catch up to him. Alright, that is pretty much the K'Sante matchup. Let's get into the Lillia one. I don't really know why people have trouble with Lillia, but literally just read her abilities. Like, read her abilities. Basically speaking, the runes don't matter, the items don't matter, but if you're struggling, God forbid, then a Strikebreaker basically just counters her. But you basically gotta understand that if Lillia gets abilities off on the wave, she's gonna basically get move speed. And if you let her stack this move speed up, she's gonna be able to trade with you with impunity, because she goes in, she Qs you, and then she just leaves, right? But the thing is, right, even if she does do this, her Q range is your hook range. So Lillia at no point in her entire kit can basically distance herself from you once you've trapped her, okay? So honestly, like, I guess level 1, it can be quite annoying to deal with her because you don't really have all your slows, but just like, if it's too much of an annoyance, just wait until level 3 and just permanently go for all-ins. Just hook her, ghost, and mess her up. That's just it, basically. Just kill her, honestly. I'll put her in free because I really don't see how you can have a problem with Lily. She's basically meant to counter like Ornn or like Volibear, like the slower guys. Malphite. I'd put Malphite also in the free-ish tier. This guy can't really put up too much of a fight. Runes don't really matter. I go for sorcery for move speed. It's kind of useful for one specific mechanic in this lane. As for items, nothing really matters. Just that you finish your boots earlier on. Just build the boost that you need for the enemy team, but you need that extra move speed. And we're going to explain to you exactly why. So basically speaking, when Malphite tosses his Q on you, the slow thing, the cheese roll, he has an animation he goes through, and then he has the missile speed of the actual Q itself. The time it takes for it to reach you. Now, if you walk directly towards Malphite, as he is targeting you with this ability, there will be a small window while the missile is traveling where he will be in hook range. Like, there will be. This is 100% consistent, okay? So, read his body language. The second he's walking directly towards you to, like, Q you, that's where you want to just walk directly towards him. Not around minions, not where he's going, directly at him, and then hook him. There will be a small window where you can hook him, but if you get the rhythm down right, you'll be able to hook him constantly every single time. And once you hook Malphite, I don't need to say anything. Just kill him, okay? Just put this guy down. So yeah, that's the Malphite matchup. Let's go for Maokai. Similarly easy. I don't really think I need to explain anything here. In runes, I guess you should go for like Second Wind to help you sustain. I think you could go for Unflinching because it was annoying CC, but it's really not necessary. Items wise, nothing really necessary here either. Just kill him, okay? Now you gotta be careful with around brushes because he can't choose you with his saplings, right? He can just stack a bunch of them in one bush, have them all walk out towards you, and then just chunk you out for quite a decent bit. But I guess that's like a worry. He can also disengage with his Q, I think, the smash down thing, so be careful of that. But like, honestly, just kill this guy. Like, he kind of just operates within your range. He operates within Q range, he operates within hook range. Just pick him up, put him down, or if he plays really passively, just freeze him until the end of time so that he's forced to use his saplings to CS. Wukong. I'd say Wukong is a bit of a tough matchup in his favor. Build-wise, I'd recommend going for like Sorcery works, but the resolve tree is kind of like tricky against him because you can't really go bone plating. His auto attack thing outranges you, so you can just easily wear it out. You can go, I get a Second Wind, But Wukong isn't really a short traded champion. He's a very all-lineage champion, okay? So the thing that's been working for me is just going for sorcery and just trying to outplay him with my movement. But you can also go for a second wind or even bull plating in some cases if you are basically going to fight intelligently with it. Items-wise, Ninja Tabi's is a must. You can go for Stridebreaker. Stridebreaker works wonderfully in this lane as well. In case things go terribly, I guess Divine can work, or worst case scenario, if you're dying to him like 3-4 times, you can buy anything with Chain's first item and just point it at him. I've seen it work. I've made it work once and I felt disgusting. But yeah, honestly just learn how to play better against him instead of relying on cheese tactics. Anyway, you basically want to be very careful with how many attacks you get on the Wukong. The thing with Wukong is that he has this ability where he dashes to a bunch of different targets at once. That ability drops all attack aggro. Seriously, right-click on Wukong, have your champion attack them, and then have Wukong dash in. Your champ will just stop. Like, that thing just drops all attack aggro. And it's it's the stupidest mechanic in the entire game, but it's just in the game. So we kind of basically have to deal with it. Now, level 1, as long as he doesn't use that ability to get you to drop one of your auto attacks, you do win with W, okay? So just, like, use your ghost. Don't just, like, stand in his face and absorb every single auto attack, because he does have a really disgusting auto attack steroid, right? Once he jumps, kite him. RW, ghost out, in, out, in, out, in, out. Make sure that he can only attack him when you can attack him, okay? Just abuse your attack range and abuse your ghost move speed to basically get as much kiting on him as possible. Now, it's not really a difficult matchup to get kills in. You can just put him down anytime between level 1 and level 6, right? Once you get all 3 of your levels, by the way, don't raw Q him. He can just jump in on it, so go for EQs. Honestly, once you hook him, it's not that difficult of a matchup. Just hook E into Q, ghost auto W, and once he leaves like his clone behind, then you can just catch up to him and kill him with your ghost. It's not really that difficult of a matchup to kill pre-6. But level 6 is where this gets dicey, because Wukong's level 6 is one of the most frighteningly powerful level 6s in the entire game. If he has Ignite, he will wander to 0 you, just by himself. He's going to dash in, ult, attack you, ult again, Ignite, you're dead. So be very respectful of his ult power spike. If you can get the plated steel cast before he gets to the stage, then you're going to be afforded a lot more leeway. And also, one thing you can actually do is just kite his ultimate. Since you have Ghost, or if you have Ghost rather, you can literally just kite his ultimate by walking out of it, right? Just walk out of it. I've done this a few times, and the thing is, if you can get him to waste his ultimate to catch up to you, because his ultimate is like a move speed steroid, right? So if you force him to use his ult to catch up to you, you're wasting quite a bit of his damage, right? Because the ult does damage over time. So that's really good for you, because even if it does knock you up, the damage is basically cut in half. So it basically gives you more room to live, to get your stacks up, and to basically ult kill him, okay? This is not really any specific techniques you gotta learn, right? Aside EQs, fine. Just be very respectful of how much auto attacks he can get off. Be respectful of his ultimate, and be very, very good at kiting. If you know how to kite, this matchup is really easy to win. And I'd say after you kill him like twice, it should be like free to just keep farming him. So I'm gonna put him in even tier for now. Up next, we've got Mordekaiser. I'd say Mordekaiser is a skill matchup in our favor. Now, Mordekaiser's got a lot of meat, but you really got to understand the type of fights to pick in order to beat this guy. Rune-wise, there's not really anything too specific you got to get. You can go for Second Wind if you're afraid of him poking you down. I go for Sorcery because you got to be very aggressive against this guy, especially earlier on. In terms of items, there's not really much there's not a lot of counter you can do against him, because basically speaking, Mordekaiser will outscale you in his ultimate eventually. So what you can do is you can go for one of these two routes. Route number 1, build to fight Mordekaiser even in his ultimate. And this build is going to be like Stridebreaker, Force of Nature, just like an item, just full MR. Okay, that's what you're going to need to fight Mordekaiser. Or the more intelligent option, which is to just buy QSS. You're going to buy QSS and then build Triforce, Sterax, or whatever build you need for that match to win against Mordekaiser's team. And instead of just fighting Mordekaiser, you just fight Mordekaiser's team instead, okay? So one of these two routes is the optimal one. Just pick whichever one you want. I'd say like win early game, right? Win the early lane, snowball, get really strong, and just kill Mordekaiser until the point where you can't beat him anymore. Then you QSS and then just ignore him, okay? Mordekaiser without his ultimate can't really do much to you. He's just gonna ult someone else, and you're gonna be able to carry the team fight, hopefully, against the rest of his team. Now, to play this matchup, you really gotta be like just understand how his abilities work, and they're quite simple. So his Q does a lot of damage if you're the only target he's hitting with it, okay? So when you're going for all in his pre-6, and you're gonna have to go for all in his pre-6, do not get hit by solo Qs, okay? Do not. Just make sure you got minions all over you, okay? Now, you basically want to go for kills, as many as possible earlier on, because level 6, Mordekaiser gets such a big 1v1 boost with his ultimate that it is absolutely insane to even try to fathom 1v1ing him. That ultimate is a massive steroid in terms of all the stats, in terms of how much it weakens you, in terms of like it giving you solo Qs. It's just like he becomes a complete menace in his ultimate. So like, try to be ahead before he even gets that thing in the first place, okay? Now, also just ghost and kill him. There's not really he can do. He really can't do anything to you. Without Mordekaiser's ultimate, you just straight up kill him, okay? So here's how it is. In his ultimate, he wins. Outside his ultimate, you win, okay? So if you are in a position where it's pre-6 or it's after level 6, but he already uses ultimate, maybe only to kill you or a jungler, then just force a fight against him and you will kill him, okay? Unless you just stupidly take like all the Qs as short, like as solo Qs. Now, if you are in his ultimate, you can actually win the 1v1, but you have to dodge his Qs using your summoner spells, okay? So 100% try to dodge his stuff, and if you dodge one of his Qs, then it should be enough for you to actually burst him down and survive in his ultimate. Now, the other approach to actually fighting in his ultimate is just surviving, okay? You ghost, you run around, and you waste his time, okay? You just kite him, and then just try to escape him as soon as the ultimate finishes, and then you can either go for a fight outside the ultimate or even just like leave because he want to chunk you out too hard in the ultimate to begin with. I think that's pretty much it for the matchup. Just go for early kills. There's nothing really special you gotta know about this matchup. It's quite a simple champion to understand. Up next, we've got Nasus. Now, Nasus kind of works similarly to Mordekaiser, except he's even easier to get kills against. But I do understand how someone might have trouble against him. So I'm going to put him... I think I'll put him like... It's quite tough because you absolutely trash him early on, but he does outscale you, okay? But by the point he outscales you, you should be either just ending the game already, so it's a tricky one, okay? Now, I'll put it in two because it's so free earlier on that you should just be getting fed off of him like unbelievably so. Now, I guess Nasus can just go Emax, so I'll put him in 3 instead of just 2. Okay, right. Because Emax and Nasus can actually do quite a bit in lane because he has a really good poke. Okay, in terms of runes, you really want to go for Tenacity, and you want to go for Second Wind, okay? Now, it does make sense that you go for Sorcery and go for as many kills as possible, but because, like, okay, there are two types of Nasus players. Ones that are dumb, and ones that are actually smart and the few high elo Nasus players. The dumb Nasus players will go Q first, level 1, and will open themselves up to being killed by you over and over again. These smart Nasus players will go E first, they'll max E, they'll go T your first item, or they'll go T at some point, and just spam E on the wave. Now, because I'm used to dealing with these smart Nasus players, the way I'm building my thing is just, I'm getting Second Wind, I'm getting D Shield, I'm getting Tenacity in my runes, both the Tenacity options, and I might even get, like, you know, Merc Treads in-game, just so that, like, his W is as short as possible. Because the thing with this matchup is that Nasus kind of, like, he's a very easy kill, he's an incredibly easy champion to kill, pre-6, but once he gets his level 6, if he can stay in your melee range and W you, and constantly kill you over and over again the entire time, he actually beats you in the 1v1. His W is so devastating, the attack speed slow is disgusting, it's just really tough to deal with it. So there are two basic approaches you can go for. Approach 1 is you kind of go for like a hyper aggressive earlier on playstyle, so that you get so many kills early that by the time he gets level 6, you're just stronger than him anyway. But the good Nasus players won't actually fight you early, they'll just stay back and eat the wave. So what I go for is I go for a lot of sustain and a lot of tenacity, so that even if we do fight, his wither is so short that I can basically just walk out of it and use my slows to basically kite him. I think what Nasus is that if his ultimate finishes, that's it. That's all of his fighting ability just gone out the window. Without his ultimate, he is nothing, okay? So if the wither is short, right, with the tenacity, we can theoretically just like walk out of it and then walk back into lane and have prio again, okay? So just understand where I'm coming from with that line of thinking. In terms of mythics, Strikebreaker works wonderfully. If you're struggling, Divine Sunder might work, but the thing is, if you're struggling in this matchup, there's nothing that's going to help you win, because if Nasus kills you once in one of his ultimate all-ins, then he just basically gets so strong that you can't really beat him against his ultimate ever, okay? So it's like, I mean, I guess even if you're like an entire item behind, if he has an ultimate, you kill him anyway, but it's like he's not going to fight you without his ultimate disease, so it's an easy matchup to get very fed out of, but there's lots of trickiness involved. So I guess 3-tier is perfect for it, along with Camille. Olaf, I'd say, is like a skill matchup. It's basically a toss-up as to who understands how to kite and etc. better. Now, in terms of runes, you can either go for move speed, which is my option, or you can also go for second wind, but I'm really not a fan of this, because if you go for second wind, and he lands the hatchet onto you, it's not really the poke we're afraid of, it's more so the fact that we're slowed, and he can just pick it up and just toss it again, okay? So, the difficult part about the matchup doesn't really get covered by second wind, so it's not really something I would recommend. I recommend just going for the move speed. And in terms of items, again, it doesn't really matter. Starbreaker doesn't do anything against him because he's just immune to slows. You could go for Divine Sunder against him. You can go for Triforce if you're winning. And like, it really doesn't matter what you build. You can go for like Tabis as well, just rush play Steel Caps earlier on. But beyond that, it's more so how you play and who's been winning lanes so far rather than like who's building what, okay? So basically speaking, what you want to do is be very careful of how you fight him. Level 1 and level 6, okay? Level 1, he's going to be able to throw his hatches at you, and if he lands one, he can walk up and constantly spam them at you, okay? So level 1, chill out. You don't want to mess with him level 1. He will win, okay? Just let him have aggro over the wave, let him have prio over the wave, let him do whatever he wants, and just don't even like walk up to be in hatchet throwable range, because his brain might unlock sentience at some point and I could just walk up to him and kill him with my Qs. Okay, so like don't mess with him level 1. Level 2 and 3 is where this lane gets a bit easier, because Olaf's pre-6 is quite pathetic. Okay? This is where you want to get kills. So whatever opportunity you have from level 2 to level 5, go for all-ins and just put him down. You don't want to just pure 1v1 him in terms of just absorb all this damage. But you basically want to make sure that you're kiting him while also doing damage to him. But a huge aspect of this also is dodging his Qs. The thing about Olaf Qs is that the way you want to play it is like this. So let's say you're like this and Olaf is here. Olaf throws a Q at you and it lands like behind you somewhere around here. So here's what you do. You want to basically just walk this way towards the Olaf or that way. And what you want to basically do is, while doing that, you want to fight the Olaf so that as he's walking towards his hatchet, you're slowing him down and you're getting stacks and attacks on him as he's reaching for this hatchet, okay? And as long as if he spends time fighting you, that's good because he's not getting to his hatchet. And it basically allows you to get more distance between him and yourself once he picks the hatchet up. So that now that it's like a max range thing, you can more easily dodge it. And once you dodge the hatchet, it's so easy to just put this guy down, because the whole thing is that we have to kite him, right? He gets more damage with his attack speed and more lifesteal when he gets low HP, but when we kite him, this is not really a problem, okay? Honestly, it's not too difficult to kill him pre-6, right? It's not really that much of an issue. The issue comes in post-level 6, okay? Because here, if you get hit by the hatchet, he's just going to ult and all in you, okay? So be really, really careful. Do not get, like, randomly all in when he ults into you, all right? So, yeah. You can literally just like, if he throws a hatchet at you, just ghost and run. Okay, don't stand to auto attack, just ghost and run. His ultimate only lasts 2.5 seconds. So if you can just waste his time for 2.5 seconds, then he should be basically boned. Because level 6 Olaf without ultimate is, again, quite pathetic. Olaf sucks without ultimate. So you can basically just exploit this to kill him with impunity, essentially, right? If you outplay his ultimate, then it's just a matter of you using your slows and your hook and your Q properly to just put him down, okay? And you don't even have to kite him that much. You could just burst him down with your ultimate, but then his shield might be annoying, so maybe you might have to kite him down a bit. Who knows, right? You could also go for the thing where you kill him during your hook, like kill him with 5 stacks during your hook before you can get the shield out, assuming he has no ultimate. But yeah, in conclusion, dodge the Qs, kite him when he's in his ultimate. Do not fight him when he's ultimate. Don't let him get his auto attacks up. Don't let him get his E's off. And turn around and kill him and destroy him when it's over. Just burst him down. Go for kills pre-6. At level 6, be very careful. Level 1, be very careful. And you kind of just outscale him anyway, right? Like, it does get to a point at the game where he can't really just kill you because you get tank items, but you just get 5 stacks and one tap him essentially. So yeah, but I guess because his ultimate never stops, if you just sit there and let him get all of his ultimate attacks off, then you deserve to die. But yeah, don't do that. All right, next matchup. The next matchup that we're going to be discussing is Ornn. Now, I'd say that Ornn it's definitely gotten easier over time, right? Like way before, like I guess a season or so, or even more than that ago, he used to be quite an annoying matchup, but it's gotten to a point where you can regularly just kill him without too many problems. But Ornn does have a lot of tools in his kit which can make your life a bit of a nightmare. So I think I'll put him in I'll put him in the 4 tier because it's not just the lane matches that's tough to deal with against the Ornn. Now, runes wise, you basically want to go for either just full move speed or the sustain build, which is like the second wind. Now, I would heavily recommend going for second wind or at least D shield when you get into lane, because like Ornn does have a lot of crazy early trading. Like his range is really sick with his trading, so you really don't want to get hit by too many of that unnecessary damage. And if you do get hit, you want to be in a position where you can actually heal back up and still lane, so you gotta take either second wind or D shield. Both is a bit too much, but either of the one is required. Build wise, nothing really is required. You just gotta kill him. Now, if he does win early, you might have to go for like a Divine Sunder. You could also go for a Cleaver Rush into a Tank Mythic. This could also work into Ornn as well. With a Tank Mythic, you're also going to be too tanky for him to kill anyway, so that's another great portion of that kind of setup. But in my opinion, just going for the Divine and then the rest of the build just normal is the more simpler solution to just the Ornn, because you can literally just go Divine and like kill him frighteningly quickly once you get it. He could be like kills and kills and kills it, and you still just body him. So yeah. In terms of how to play the lane, you really got to understand Ornn's trading patterns and just his abilities. So real quick, right, head into the wiki and read everything he's capable of. First things first, you really don't want to mess around too much level 1. Now, if the Ornn is stupid and he walks into your melee range, just W kill him, right? He's an easy kill. But a smart Ornn is not going to do that. A smart Ornn is going to basically just spam those, like, I think it's his Q. He's basically going to spam Qs at you, and they're super long range. They're like decently long range compared to where Darius' range, and you can't do anything about him poking with it. And also they slow. So if you're just like right up next to his auto range, you're about to auto attack him with your W, he can just Q you, that slows it, and then he just walks away. So it's not easy to just reach the Ornn level 1 to begin with. If you do, kill him. If you can't, which is most usually the case, you basically want to go for Q and then just chill around in the wave. Try to get Q hits in on him. Try to make sure that he can't like hit both you and the mini wave with his Q, so to pick either of the two, and try to dodge it as much as you can. Now, the lane becomes killable once you hit level 2, 3, 4, 5, and then just like until the end of the game, because you have your slows now. Now, level 2 is like a pretty golden opportunity to kill the Ornn, because here, you basically want to like rank your hook second. Now, the Ornn either is going to rank QW or QE. If he ranks QW, he's a free kill. Just kill him, okay? Because he literally has no escape from you. You can just run him down. If he ranks QE, then he can't actually like stun you in melee range. The best he's going to do in fights is just Q you, and then when you get into melee range, just run away with his E, right? He's going to dash away. The thing about Ornn's dash is that it's cancelable by your hook, okay? So if you can kind of tell his sort of stance he gets in before he goes into his like E dash, then you can basically time your hook to hook him, and his hitbox is so massive that doing so is not that difficult most of the time. So like if he ranks QE level 2, then try to get into his melee range, Q him, whatever on him, and then just wait to time your hook on him, and then just hook him out of it and kill him. Level 3 on, Ornn gets his like typical trade combo, which is basically him doing W slam, and while you're like attacked by the W brittle proc, thing where you're just like kind of knocked up, I guess, on the spot, Ornn dashes back. And because you are stunned, you can't actually do anything about it. You can't stun him, you can't slow him, and this is like the main way Ornn gets to trade against you. The way you can deal with this is kind of like a bit numerous, but what matters more than what you do here is like your exact positioning, okay? Because if the Ornn has a long way to go to reach his turret, it doesn't matter if he does every single trick under the book, he will just die, okay? So number 1, play the waves near to your side of the lane. Number 2, a trick you can do is go full tenacity. So go tenacity in runes, unflinching, legend tenacity, and then go Merc Tread's first item. What this will let you do is like, when Ornn does the brittle auto attack and dashes away, brittle reduces your tenacity, right? So the effect of you being stunned lasts longer. But if you just go ham, all in on all the tenacity you can get, the W stun lasts short enough for it to actually get a hook in and pull him out of his E dash, okay? Now you do have to position properly, because if you're like in the very edge of his auto range, you won't be able to do this. But if you're like right like on top of him, your model's on top of his, you should be able to hook him out of his dash with your hook, even if he does the W auto attack thing. Now, the thing about this W is that Ornn just doesn't stand still. He kind of runs forward while doing his W. So it's like a really nice life trick that you can do is basically ghost and then just run through the Ornn. Like, don't attack, just do your normal thing, but don't use attacks that aren't cancelable. Basically, just auto attack him and wait for his W. And the second he Ws, just stop everything you're doing, ghost and just straight run through him. Or you can also just run to the side, but I find it more consistent to just like stick right up to his face and just run straight through him, right? So the way you can do this is, it's just pretty simple, right? The thing with Ghost is that it lets you pass through units, and Ornn is such a big model that doing so normally is difficult, but with Ghost, it's like, you just right-click to the other side of him, and it's kind of hilarious to see him just stand there not being able to do anything. Like, Ornn doesn't do any damage in all this without his W brittle proc auto attacks. Also, Ornn's ultimate, the thing about it is that you can actually cancel it with your hook. Now, Ornn has two parts of his ultimate, one where he recalls the ult, and then where he slams it with his head. If you hook him, before he slams the ult with his head, he won't be able to get the second recast of it. So just try to like save your hook so that you can cancel his ultimate, okay? One big thing is land your Qs. You will ultimately get into situations where the Ornn will poke you down, and you're fighting like an uphill battle where you have like 60% of your health and he has like 80%. So like, you really want to land your Qs as much as possible, because if you don't, and he lands everything, he will just completely just Shrek you and kill you while you're CC'd. So you got to be really careful with how you play fights in general. There's nothing really else to say. The difficult part about the Ornn matchup is that he has a ton of tools in his toolkit. He has a lot of lane sustain because he can just shop and buy these stats he needs. Like if he's low on health, he just buys Ruby Crystal. He just finishes like counter items in lane. So if you just lane for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, he'll be ahead in gold, even though none of you has recalled. The more annoying part is that in team fights, no matter what Ornn does, he's just going to be useful because he just gives CC and he gives free stats to his team. So you really have to outperform to do more than an Ornn in a team fight. He's just really like, he's useful by simply just existing, you know? So yeah, it's going to take a lot of work to outdo him. But I guess matchup-wise, if we're talking straight up just the 1v1, while only factoring the team fighting portions a tiny bit, I'd say I'd put Ornn in the easy win tier. Now, there is this new cheese tactic where they go phase rush, but the thing is, he's actually squishier when he does this. So you can basically just, like, if you set the wave up near your side of the turret, he's just way more easy to kill when he does the phase rush thing. You also gotta be very careful with how you chase him and how you do phase rush. I mean, how you use your pull. But yeah. The next matchup is gonna be Pantheon. I put Pantheon in the easy win tier. There's nothing really complicated about this matchup. You simply have to respect his early damage. Now, in terms of runes, you want to go second wind. Sorcery is decent, but it's just not required. It's just complicating the lane for no reason. In terms of items, you want to rush Ninja Tabi. Early on, D-Shield helps a lot too, because basically speaking, voice crack, during the first 3 levels, Pantheon has absolute prio. His Q kind of outranges you, so what the Pantheon can do is literally just Q-tap you with just the very tip of the Q, and just poke you down before you can even react. So this is what you're trying to avoid, right? You don't want to get poked down by the Pantheon. So just, if he's in range to Q-poke you, just back off, chillax, and let him have the wave. Once you get level 3, you just kill him with Nolans. Like, he straight up just dies to you in Nolans, okay? I'll provide you land your Q and stuff, but still, like, there isn't really any specific trick you need to know to beat this guy. Now, there's a thing you can do where, if Pantheon does W, and you time your hook, you can cancel it midair, or at the very least making sure that he doesn't get the empowered 3 all attacks after the W, right? He's stunned so he can position better, all that good stuff. But you really don't need to know any of that. Just land your Qs, right? Fight the fights properly, do your fundamentals, and make sure he doesn't block a major portion of your damage using your E shield, okay? Don't let him block your ultimate or whatever with that thing. So yeah. Level 6, the fight becomes even easier. Like, if you've been struggling earlier on, just all in him level 6, and he's just gonna melt like tissue paper. Obviously, you should be getting your armor earlier on, because without armor, it's kind of annoying to deal with his damage, but yeah, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Just fight properly, kill him, respect this early, and yeah, once you put him down a few times, he's just like a free kill, no matter what. Poppy. I'd say Poppy is like... Man, when's the last time I fought Poppy? It's like... I think earlier season 12 is the last time I fought Poppy. Now, in terms of... I'd say she's mostly just a free matchup. Like, I don't really see how anybody can struggle with this. Like, the runes don't really matter, the items don't really matter, but you can, I guess, go Stridebreaker or Divine Sunder. Just be careful with how you position in relation to her. Like, if don't stand between her and a wall, and be very careful with how many of your minions she has around her. Because what a Poppy can do, a good one, she'll go in, she'll take a stupid trade, but before you can retaliate, she'll like dash into like an allied minion that's behind her and basically get away. Okay, so be very careful of Poppy cheese. That's literally it. Poppy just has a ton of cheese at its disposal that she could just that she could just use. So just understand how she can use her E to basically cheese through trades, cheese through all-ins, and you should be good to go. Just land your Qs. Don't stand there on little hammer things that are on the ground, so it doesn't necessary damage, and you really shouldn't be taking that damage because you literally just walk out of it. I guess her ultimate's a bit annoying because it basically is like an automatic disengage. But even so, it's like, I guess because of her ultimate, I'll put her in 2. Because her ult can just be like a disengage, right? So, like, let's say you use your ghost and stuff, she just ults and you're gone. So I guess she's a bit annoying. Actually, she can be annoying because she just ults you out of team fights when you're trying to carry. But, like, to kill her 1v1 is not really an issue at all. And just snowball off of her. Quinn. I'd say Quinn is like a really difficult matchup, in my opinion. Not just because of the lane, but because of what she's actually capable of on the map. In terms of runes, you really want Sustain, Second Wind. Sorcery works, right? If you're aggressive and confident, you can go for Sorcery. But if you're not so sure, then Second Wind is nothing wrong with it. You have to go D-Shield. 100% sure you have to go D-Shield. And you gotta rush Plated Steel Cap's first item. Now, the thing with this matchup is that she's not that difficult to beat in all-ins, okay? If you just grab a hold of her, she's not that hard. But every single situation where you're not fighting her, she just has the absolute advantage. Short trades, she has a ton of move speed out of nowhere, she gets really nice trades, she gets the ability to disengage from you. It's quite tough to actually function against her if you're not all-inning her, okay? So any situation where you don't have your pull, you missed it, or it's not level 3, or you know, you don't have your summoner spell, so you can't catch up to her because she has Gale Force. In any of these situations, it's a nightmare to be around her. Now, in the all-in itself, she's actually not that difficult to kill, provided you haven't taken too much poke. You just pull her. You try to, like, it's very important to position properly, because what you want to do is when you hook her, you don't want to just instantly start auto-attacking her because she'll just knock you back and you have to walk all the way to her again. You know, basically make sure that she knocks you back in an awkward position, okay? So let's say there's a wall here, and this is you, this is her. When you hook her, you want to just like walk like this. So if she does do the headbutt thing, she's basically knocking herself with her back to the wall. So you can just like collapse on her and kill her. Okay? So like be very understanding of how her headbutt thing, or I don't even know what it's called, but her that ability, how it exactly moves her. And don't just be greedy with your combos. Her headbutt thing does cancel your W, which is like crazy. So I want to kind of make sure that when you do E, you don't do ERWQ, you do EWQ, because Queens will just instantly jump out of it. And the thing is, like, if you do the W quick, it will land. And then with how she does the headbutt thing, like, there's a very good chance that Q just automatically lands itself. So yeah, or you might just hold the Q and just go for like an RW as you like position, whatever, right? It's not really that complicated to beat her in the fights itself. It's just, it's a tough matchup because if the Queen has a brain, she won't get in a position where you can all in her. And if you don't kill her before level 6, she just basically has like free pickings of the entire map. She can roam all the way around the map, killing whoever she wants, fighting whoever she wants, and you can do nothing to stop her. So that is why the matchup is so difficult. Not just because of the matchup itself, but because of how much you can basically be gapped by Quinn, simply due to how much roaming potential she has. So yeah, not a fun matchup to fight for Darius at all, and especially not one to just try to outdo on the macro scale. Rammus. I'd say Rammus is mostly like a free matchup. Do I even need to do anything? Like, do I need to advise anything? In terms of runes, I guess you can go like Tenacity, right? That's kind of helpful, but it's not really necessary. Items-wise, again, nothing's really too necessary. Stridebreaker could do a lot of work. Cleaver, maybe. Cleaver Rush into Tank Mythic. Divine Sunder could work, but honestly, it's just not necessary, right? Just play better. And I actually don't see how you can die to Rammus. I actually don't see how Rammus can do anything in this lane. He has terrible wave clear, right? He actually can't trade that much. The only way he can actually out-trade you is when he has that form where he has a lot of armor, but you can literally just walk away from him and then just walk back in, and you have so much more range than him. It's like kiting him is like not really that much of a problem. He doesn't do that much damage. The only issue with him is that he can kind of proxy, right? If you let him proxy, it's a bit of a bother. But, like, I don't know, like, just play with the wave properly, guard your wave, don't let him, like, guard the entrances of your jungle that are, like, the closest to the lane, right? So if you're on the red side, you guard the Tri-Brush so that he can't really get into it, and then you basically just stop him from proxying. So yeah, aside from the proxy, Rammus is not really a threat at all. Renekton is a hard skill matchup. Now, most Dariuses will beat most Renekton's, but if the Renekton is really good, the match just starts getting a bit more tricky, which is why I love this matchup so much. It's such a fun one to fight, and my personal favorite matchup. Now, rune-wise, you can go for bone plating, but you really have to be deliberate with how to use it. If you don't know how to use the bone plating, don't take it, because if you're bad with using it, then Renekton will just take it off with his Q, and then just go all in, right? So you gotta basically time your fights with when it comes back up, so that it gets back up in the middle of the fight, essentially, right? Second wind also works. Sorcery is decent, but honestly, you kind of need some meat to put this guy down, right? Like, extra meat from the result tree is really necessary against him. Build-wise, there's nothing really specific you need to build. Tabi's obviously works quite well. Warden's Mail is a disgustingly, like, sickening item that does wonderfully against him. It just destroys the damage of his W. And I guess you can go with Stridebreaker to help chase him through and kite him. Triforce could be decent, but then again, if you haven't beaten him yet, Triforce isn't going to make things any easier. Divine kind of works, but not really, because the Renekton just goes damage, right? So it doesn't do as much as it like used to be when Renekton went more bruisery. So yeah, the thing with Renekton is that you gotta beat him earlier on, because once Renekton gets Bork, his Empowered W does like more than half your health. So you really want to just not mess with him later on if you haven't killed him. So just focus on killing him earlier on. Now, how do we kill him? Renekton has like a really weird trading pattern that you got to understand, because like what he's gonna basically try to do is W stun you and then E dash out twice. Okay, so that's like, so first off, just learn his abilities and understand how they work in both the normal form and the empowered form. Now, level 1, you can actually just kill him. So if he walks up to Q the wave, just run up to him, auto W, and just W cheese kill him. He can't really stop you from doing that. Level 2, it gets a bit tricky because you don't have all of your CC, right? But if the Renekton goes QW, then you should be able to kill him in the all-in quite easily, okay? So you can, like, just observe him. If he goes QW, all-in him and kill him. If he goes QE and his E is, like, his dash thing, then you won't be able to do anything to him because to keep up with his dash, you need to have both of your CC ability, which is your W and your hook. Now, level 3 is where this matchup gets very interesting because, basically speaking, well, first things first, don't let him get on the wave, okay? Just don't let him attack the wave for free. Because once Renekton stacks up his Fury, then he's going to be able to do really devastating auto attacks and, not auto attacks, really devastating abilities that will chunk you out quite a bit and heal him out even more than usual. So, don't let him get on the wave. And if he does get on the wave, just leave him be, give him the pride, because those ferocity or empowered or like abilities, if you can like get the full bar, you can get 2 of them on you, and then you're just basically dead. So like, don't mess with him when he has those empowered abilities on. Okay. Now, aside from that, what we're kind of trying to do here is basically get Renekton to stun us, right? But while he's stunning us, get some auto attack damage off on him. Now remember, none of our abilities get blocked by CC. So if you do like auto W, and the Renekton stuns you while you're doing your W, then your W will still go through, okay? So like, try to like fight in a way where your abilities still hit him while you're being stunned. Now as for his like dash, his dash gives him 2 dashes when his first dash is through an enemy unit. So what you want to do is like, you want to be very careful with how you give him a dash. So let's say you're in an all-in situation. You fight him, you do RWQ, and then you walk in front of him. Now, if you do this, he stuns you and just dashes through you, and 2 dashes is usually enough to get him out of your, like, fightable range. Like, unless your wave is really near your side of the lane, unless the wave is near your side of the lane, you really won't be able to catch up to him. Now, if you're fighting, you do RWQ, but then you still make sure that you're, like, behind him in relation to his turret, then he basically has to walk towards you to get that through dash out. So you don't want to give that to him for free. Just make sure he's, like, in between your Q range and your auto attack range. Make sure he's in this area so he's not fully escaped, but he's not inside your model so he can't get that easy E dash out. Now, what we're aiming for to do by doing this is make sure that he only gets a single E dash out, because he's not going to go through us, right? He's only going to get 1 out. And when he gets 1 out, the distance is so short that it takes us like 1-2 seconds to catch up to him with Ghost, okay? So the 1 dash is really not enough to disengage from us. So that's what we're trying to do, right? So we're chasing him to his turret. Don't give him that free E dash. Now, if you can predict how he dashes, you can also just hook to cancel it. This is a trick that you can do where I really don't recommend this, but some Darius players go like tenacity, so that when the Merc treads literally, so that when the Renekton W's you, the W like CC is short enough to the point where you could just hook to like cancel his E dash. So like, it's really cheese, and I wouldn't recommend it, but it's like a tactic there if like you just brutally destroy him, but his stun kind of gets in your way. So yeah. In all in situations, just like his whole thing is just he trades into you and gets away. So if you can position your wave in a way, position yourself in a way, avoid giving him 2 dashes, or use your CC abilities to make sure that even if he does dash, you basically catch up to him, then you should be able to kill him no problem, because in all ins, he doesn't really do that great if he's outside his ultimate. Now, in his ultimate, you really want to be very careful with how you fight him, okay? Because he does do a ton of damage. He gets so much stats for free, so be very, like, only fight if you're sure you're going to be able to kill him, okay? Because he does, like, survive longer than you'd expect him to. Now, you should be killing him before level 6 anyway, and if you get a kill before 6, he should be, like, free to put down level 6. But, yeah. Later on in the game, he goes for, like, a crazy build of Bork and, like, Prowler's Claw or something crazy like that. And the whole purpose of that build is just get onto the squishy and then kill him with just a W. Now, if he does this into you, and you have your normal build, you should be able to just body him, like, he's not that tanky. So, like, as long as you're, like, a slightly ahead or even, and you have your tank items, he should be easy to just get 5 stacks on and then just put down. But, like, once he just gets that Bork instantly, that's when it's, like, problematic, because you don't actually have your tank stats enough to be able to survive his W and the Bork damage. So, yeah. It's ultimately a skill matchup, whereas the better player wins, but, you know, a good Renekton is very rare to come by, especially since the champion has not been doing great lately. Rengar is mostly just a free matchup. There's very little that a Rengar can do. Now, I guess if the Rengar is really good, he can go for some sort of messed up W max build where he's just playing for short trades. But even in those scenarios, if you have your head on your shoulders, you should be able to just kill him. So I'm gonna put it right here because like Rengar is such a high skill cap champion that like you'll eventually find a ranker that they can do something against you to make it so that you can't kill him, right? But for the most part, it's like he's not going to be able to post too much out there. You don't need to go any specific rune choices, items either. I guess Stridebreaker really destroys Rengar, right? Stride will just like mess his life up because he tries to go in and you do his Empower W and just run back into his bush. But like with Stride, he can't do that. So yeah. You might get something out of getting anti-heal against him, but I wouldn't really recommend it too much, right? Just kill him normally. Now for the lane. So you basically want to be careful level 1, because Rengar's level 1 is actually quite crazy in that if he has Ignite, he can basically just kill you level 1. Now, the lane starts turning around once you hit basically level 3. Because essentially speaking, in this lane, Rengar's Bola Strike, the E, is not that useful, right? The slow is not that useful against you. So you basically have way more use out of your abilities than he does his. So like just stay near the minions, and the second he jumps on the minions, like auto WQ, but save your hook. Because if the Rengar is smart, he's only going to jump when he wants to use his WW, right? So he's going to jump it on you, do a quick short trade, and once you trade it back against him, he does WW. He heals back all the damage you deal against him, but, you know, the W itself deals damage to you, so he kind of technically wins the trade. Now, at this point, you want to hook him, right? As he starts to run back to this bush, you hook him, get your 5 stacks, and then at that point, it's just a matter of like chasing him and putting him down with your ghost. Like, Rengar can't really do too much aside from just jumping between minions to like waste your time, but you should be able to just burst down the run before he does that anyway. But just be careful level 1. Like, that's the only point where like if he gets a kill on you, he can basically just snowball and win. But aside from that, you should be good to go. The next matchup is going to be Riven. Now, I'd say Riven is like, it really depends on the rank of the Riven, in my opinion. Because if the Riven is really good, it's going to be quite tough to actually put her down and win, like, regularly. But it's a very, very hard skill matchup as well. So it's like between these two tiers. I'll put her in, like, 6 out of 9. But understand, like, if you have good enough skill, you can just beat her up anyway. Now, rune-wise, you want to go for definitely sorcery, right? To have the move speed to catch up with her, to have the move speed to kite her. Because, yes, you have to kite the Riven. I've made a video on this, actually, so, like, it's, like, super in-depth. It's super in detail. So go watch that video if you're starting with a specific Riven matchup, okay? I think it's the same video with, like, Darius's worst matchups, Roku. Just search that literally, and you should be able to get it. I have the image of Riven in the thumbnail of that video. But, yeah. In terms of items, there's nothing really specific. You gotta go Ninja Tabi's first item. Starbreaker helps a lot. Triforce is fine, I guess, because like you want to just burst her down quickly. But then again, you know, Riven does get to a point where like she could just get completely on top of you. But like it really isn't what you build or what you take in your runes. It's just how you play. Okay, so first things first, understand Riven's kit. Okay, you're not going to get anywhere with this matchup if you don't understand literally everything that Riven does. So know all her abilities, and on top of knowing all her abilities, know all of her combos, okay? You don't have to learn how to do them, but just understand what combos she's capable of, and how, like, what the circumstances are under which she does them, okay? Because Riven has a few combos that she uses in this lane that kind of make it really easy for her. So, like, to basic function. Now, the most important combo, the two most important combos you got to be aware of is her Q combo and her short trade combo. Her Q combo is basically the thing where she gets in your melee range and uses her Q to get her auto attacks reset. So she does auto attack Q, auto attack Q, auto attack Q, like, and then one more auto attack. This is such a high burst combo, and it's literally like the majority of Riven's damage, okay? That's why, like, when you're fighting Riven and she's in your melee range, she just kills you out of nowhere. This is the exact combo, okay? So when you're fighting Riven, you don't want to start in your, like, melee range, okay? What you can do actually is, because Riven's auto attack range is quite low, you can use your W to basically slow her down and then just kite her like that, okay? So there's that option as well, but really, do not start fights in melee range. You gotta kite that Q combo. The great thing about it is that once Riven is done with her Qs, that's it. Riven without her Qs does 0 damage, right? The rest of the kit is kind of just like nothing. So if you can outplay or kite or like cancel her third Q, I guess, with your hook, then you should be good to go to just mauling her, okay? Now, EQ combos are your friend. You're the one that lands your Qs in this matchup, but be very careful, because if you're fighting a Riven who has level 6, do not hook her. Under no circumstance should you hook her. Because if you hook her, think of what you're doing. You hook her, what are you going to do? RWQ or just EQ? She gets hit by the Q, whatever. She dashes in, auto attacks, W, you're stunned, auto Q, auto Q, auto Q, and you basically set up Riven's entire melee range combo. And she's going to straight up just one-shot you with Ignite if you actually let her get this engage off by, like, engaging for her by hooking her, okay? So do not hook Riven when she has all of her abilities up, okay? Be very careful of, like, how she uses her abilities. Now, the second way that Rivens use their abilities most commonly is they use their W to stun you, and then they get away with their E, okay? Now, the way you want to basically play this, like, set of trade situation is, like, try to juke the W. The W has a very low range. It's only like 200 something. So if you just juke back, you should be able to just get it out of her. And because you're not stunned, and like if in this situation Riven also doesn't have her Qs, you should be able to just run up on her and kill her. And even if she does have her Qs, if you're fast enough on your hooks, you should be able to just pull her back. And at this point, she's just basically dead, because if she doesn't have all of her abilities to set things up, then you should be able to just like outmaneuver her with your ghost and just destroy her and land on your abilities. So yeah, level 1, you don't want to mess with her too much, right? The thing is, a good Riven, by a good Riven, I mean any Riven with half a brain, they're just going to walk into your melee range, and they do Q attack, Q attack, Q attack, and kill you, right? They should have just win the level 1 all-in. So it's like, the Riven's got a crazy level 1 all-in for no reason, so just don't fight that. You want to go for all-ins after level 3, because your CC abilities are your bread and butter, okay? What you basically want to do is, like, go for fights where the Riven wastes her abilities, okay? If the Riven wastes her Q or something like that, then you should go for all-in opportunities on her, right? You must want to start them with your W. Like, pre-6, it's not really that bad if you start fights with your hook, but be very careful, because if the Riven has her Qs up, then you're not going to have a good time, okay? So, just use your ghost, use your slows to kite her Q. What other tips can I give? You can use your hook to cancel her third Q, so, like, there's that. If you cancel that, she's basically landing your Q, and she's out of Qs, so you can just run her down with your auto attacks and your ghost. What other tips? I can't really, like, it's just, you just gotta understand the matchup. Like I've given you a ton of tips, but, like, a Riven is such a personal and just, like, it's such a personal champion that every single Riven is gonna play their Riven differently, okay? So just, when you're playing against the specific Riven player that you're up against, pay attention to how they use their abilities, and just look for little cracks where they, okay, when they try to CS this one thing, they use W, or they try to use W when you do this ability. So just, you try to pretend like you're doing that ability, whatever, right? Just, like, understand how the specific Riven functions and try to counter her. So, like, if the Riven every time walks up to you, does W, and then E dashes away, then what you might want to do is, once she walks up to W, you walk towards her like you're going to tank it like usual, juke back, and then as she dashes away, you hook her, and then she's just dead, right? So just try to understand the specific combos and the combinations abilities the Riven uses, and just plan out in your head how you're going to get kills on her. And the thing about this matchup is that if you just kill her once or twice, you can snowball pretty hard. Now, this matchup becomes really difficult in high elo, because Riven can dash through, like, basically walls and stuff, and she has a lot of mobility. So a good Riven is going to be all over the map. She's going to roam everywhere and make your life an absolute nightmare, right? Not because she's going to kill you, but because she's going to be able to get into every single fight in the jungle. She's going to be able to invade your jungler if she has prio, so just be very careful of that. She's going to be able to gank mid very, very easily, get dives going. It's like, the reason why she's almost always going to be one of the best picks in solo queue is because of this mobility. She can be all over the map, and there's not much you can do to stop her, because, like, in top lane, like, at some point, the enemy is going to have prio, regardless of whether you're trying to, like, whether you're going to be able to stop them or not, they're going to have prio, okay? So, yeah. Alright, let's get right into the next matchup, which is Rumble Top. Now, I'd say Rumble Top is, like, it's a bit of a weird one, in my opinion. It's kind of in your favor, because you can basically just body him and all this, but Rumble Top is basically one of those matches where he has all the tools in his kit at his disposal to basically just mess you up. Not mess you up, but just survive against you and mess you up in certain circumstances. Now, rune-wise, you really want to go for, like, you really need some sort of sustaining lane, because his poke is kind of crazy. So you gotta have second wind or D shield, or even both in some cases, right? You gotta take magic resist too. It's quite important. In terms of starting items and stuff, you need D shield. You gotta get magic resist, like at least a null mantle or something, and then you kind of just beat him in all in. So it doesn't really matter to just dedicate an entire, even like a 1k gold to him. Just get the null mantle, get boots, and then just body him. Don't buy Merc Treads, obviously, because we don't really need tenacity. Again, it's Rumble. He has no CC, right? So, yeah. In terms of how the lane plays out, you want to be very careful when he has this full, like, overheating bar, right? Because not when he has a 4, but when, like, his bar has 2 parts, right? It's, like, normal, the white bar, the yellow part of the bar, and then if it gets full, he can't use his abilities, right? Now, when it gets to the second portion of the bar, everything he does way more damage. So if you're going to go for an all-in, make sure that if you're even, make sure that you're not fighting him when his bar is on the second portion of his, like, you know, it's not yellow, right? It's just white. So, yeah, really make sure you do that because, like, again, he will straight up just one-shot you, like, from 100 to 0. Now, if the ability, he's not, like, he hasn't used a lot of his abilities, so it's, like, still in the first part of the bar, then also just run up on him and kill him. He can't really do too much. If you run through your minions, he won't be able to stop you with his little rocket things that just slow you. He's a bit of a pain to survive. Like, it's kind of annoying to survive him level 1 because of his flame thrower doing so much poke damage, but from level 2, 3 on, you should be able to just kill him. Level 6 as well. Just be very careful. Don't stay his ultimate for too long. There's nothing really complicated in this matchup. Just don't take too much poke. Keep your head on your shoulders. Buy a few of the good stats you need. And then just snowball. Our next matchup is Rise. Man, this guy is like... Jesus. Man, I guess, like, I'm just going to put it on an easy one because this guy's down bad. This is one of the... I think Rise is, like, straight up the worst champion in the game. Like, no cap. Like, I get maybe Skarner is, but straight up, dude, Rise sucks so hard. He does, dude. Like, all he does is just kind of wave clear. That's all he has going for him, okay? Okay, rune-wise, I guess you'd want... Just go sorcery and kill him. Like, just go the moon speed. It's not really even nice to bother with second wind or resolve. Just go sorcery and kill him. In terms of your starting items, go for D-Shield. It's kind of useful. Strikebreaker is really crazy against him. It's awesome. Aside from that, yeah, you don't really need any like I guess Merc Treads could also be useful, right? If he's annoying, but you really should be winning the matchup way before that. But Merc Treads, Strikebreaker, and you should be good to go. Now, the thing with this matchup is that you gotta understand one specific mechanic. When Rise does that point and click root thing on you, like the prison, he is in your hook range. Okay, so when you're like, you know, trying to get an all-in going, walk directly at him, and by the time he does EW, you should be able to just hook him. And once you get that hook in, just run him down and kill him. You know, just run him down. Like, there's just literally nothing else to do. He's quite an easy champion to beat down. And once you start killing him, you're faster, you're stronger, you should be able to farm this guy nonstop. So, yeah, do that. I know. The best that Rise can do is just stay back and just EQ spam the waves so that, like, you know, he's like constantly shoving the wave in, so you're busy dealing with the wave so much that you can't actually deal with him. But aside from that, he just can't do anything. So, yeah, that's the Rise matchup. Sejuani. I'll put Sejuani in, like, easy win. Now, the thing is, right, most Sejuanis go TP Ignite. So, like, it's really easy to find a Sejuani that basically is out of position, so you can just kill her. Rune-wise, I'd go for Resolve, actually. You really need a lot of tenacity in this matchup because CC is quite annoying. So, Legend Tenacity, Second Wind, Unflinching. We're going Merc Treads first item in-game. And in terms of item choice, Strikebreaker is good. Because she builds so much HP, you can just go with Divine Sunder if she beats you. Like, if you're losing lane, then go Divine Sunder. Cleaver works fine, too, here. In terms of just playing out the all-ins themselves and then fighting her, you really gotta be, like, really careful of how she trades, because Sejuani can get a lot of damage just snuck onto you. Like, her trading is quite, like, crazy. That's why they're playing her top lane, right? Her trading is quite, like, really good. But the thing about Sejuani is that her all-inning is terrible, okay? So it's kind of like the same thing as K'Sante, where you really want to make sure to just force all-ins as much as you can and stop her from getting away from you. Because she doesn't have flash, it's just a matter of, like, running up on her and landing your abilities, right? It's just literally running up on her and landing your abilities. Now, if she does get a bit of jungle help, it does get annoying because she's going to have so much HP that you can't kill her. But because, you know, the current meta, she's going to be able to chunk half your health in one rotation. So there's that. But honestly, it's just like, Sejuani cannot do too much against you on her own. It's just that her early trading is so good that if Sejuani is careful, then she should be able to like sneak up so many good trades and that you can't even fight her anymore. So yeah, just be careful of that, and it should be it. Set top. Oof. Our boy Set's not been doing too great. This is not really a good time for him, especially not with how good he used to be in the first year or so when he was released. But yeah, this one's ultimately a skill matchup. It really depends on who understands their fundamentals better and who sticks to them better. Because whoever just basically gives up and goes crazy is the first one to just get put down. Now, though, in terms of runes, you really want bone plating into this. Bone plating is so crazy good into set. You're like, they are crazy if we're not taking it. In terms of items, you want Ninja Tabis first, and you want HP, okay? HP for the 2 damage, and then Ninja Tabis, because, like, a lot of his damage is just through auto attacks. Now, level 1, don't mess with him, okay? Set level 1 is really crazy, okay? So the most you're going to do is Q him, but if you're not able to Q him, stop, okay? Do not mess with set level 1, because a lot of what happens is that Set gets good trades level 1, and now you don't have like the meat in you to actually fight a full all-in, because you really do need your HP to put this guy down. Level 2, it gets a bit more fightable, I guess, but you really gotta like know which one of these abilities he has activated, because if he ranks W, you don't beat him level 2, right? Because the Set can just literally fight you, and E stun, W guarantee you, and then just kill you like that, okay? So you really don't want to give him that, but level 3 on, the fights become a bit more fightable. Now, the big thing you gotta understand about this matchup is that his W is like his bread and butter. You do not want to get into a position where he can just E-stun and then W you to finish you off, okay? Now, the main way you do this is basically just wasting his abilities, because the thing with Set is that he's lower range than you. So if you walk up to him and just start the fight with like a Q, right? Try to edge Q him, or like, you try to RW and you just like, instead of like actually fighting him, you do auto attack, W, and then, or just maybe a W, and you walk away. You're basically getting good damage off of him, and you're forcing him to use his E to get you immune range so he can fight you, okay? This is what you want to do. You want to force him to use his E, because without his E, he cannot land his W. Obviously, he can if you're, like, not good at dodging, or if you don't expect that ability somehow, even though it's just slow. But, like, really, like, you have your sums, you have your right click, just move around, like, get him to waste his E first. And once he wastes his E, this matchup is so free. Okay, it's so free because W is just everything. It's his damage, it's his durability. So just like fight him, get him to waste his E, get him to waste his W, and then just go back in and finish him off with your last rotation of abilities. That's like basically how the typical all-in works against Set. You also don't want to tank a lot of his auto attacks because he does have double the auto attacks you do, right? So just be careful. Kite him a bit if you can. But, I mean, you gotta kite him in general. There's a lot of kiting and dodging involved in this matchup. And, yeah. A trick you can do against him, which is actually fun, is that his W is, like, a shield that stops you from killing him, right? So if he is, like, let's say he is 400 health, and an auto attack and an ultimate will kill him. Like, he's 400 health, 4 stacks, what kills him is auto attack cold. What you can do is hook, auto attack, and ult him, and this will kill him before he uses W to stop you from killing him. So that's a quite nice trick. Check out my combo guide that I made recently to see how exactly to do this technique. And yeah, that's pretty much the Set matchup. You do beat him in like game fights though, so don't worry if he messes you up earlier on. Just chill and wait until later on. Anyway, let's move on to the next champion. All right, up next we've got Shen. I'll put Shen in like the easy to win category, but you really gotta understand that if we were talking about just the 1v1, Shen would be like here. But we're not. Like, Shen is such a difficult champion to outdo on a team scale because of his ultimate. But let's just get right into it. So, rune-wise, you want to go for Demolish. You really want to have the extra meat. Bone plating is also great against Shen because he's not really a champion to just get one attack off. He wants to get a few attacks and then back off. So, going for Conquer, Demolish, and then bone plating is going to set you very nicely for this lane. Now, item-wise, it doesn't really matter too much. You beat him regardless of what you build, especially after you guys get your mythics, because he doesn't have a combat ultimate, so you could just burst him down with your ultimate. If you're struggling, I guess you can go for like a Stridebreaker, not a Stridebreaker, a Divine Sunder or something that works quite well against him, because he's like basically a tank, right? Okay, so the way this lane kind of works is like this, okay? So earlier on, level 1, Shen has the advantage. Now, in some cases, right, let's say he wastes his abilities or something, or attacking wave, you can't just rank W and kill him, okay? But if he uses his auto attacks properly and he saves them for you, that's not going to be too possible. So, like, worst case scenario is just chill level 1. Because the lane becomes much easier level 2 and 3 onwards, okay? Now, level 2, 3, you really want to be looking for as, like, just all-in opportunities whenever you can, okay? The thing about Shen is that, like, he kind of just sucks in all-ins. His thing is just short trade, waste time, leave, and then do it again. So, you really shouldn't be having too many issues trying to kill him. Be very careful when you're under his turret, because if he taunts you while you're under his turret, you're just going to die. Be very careful when you're fighting into a big mini wave, because if he taunts you while you're in his big mini wave, you're just going to die. It's quite hard to fight him in that kind of situation. Do not get your W blocked by his W. The thing where that blocks the Aatrox. Do not get your W blocked by that. That's crucial. Be very careful with your hook and just the way you position. Because basically, the way you gotta fight this matchup is like you're gonna chase him through, right? Now, the thing is, if he taunts you, your champion still runs after him. So what you can do is just literally engage with hook, and then you can W whatever, but get behind him. Because if he taunts towards you to get towards his turret, Darius will still run after him and just like attack him because of the taunt effect, which lets you basically follow him and just like put him down eventually, okay? So yeah, W also works. Like if he taunts you and you have W activated, Darius just walk towards him and W Shen himself, which is like a trick that's like it's a really disgusting trick you can pull off if you see his dash coming. But yeah. You can also cancel his dash with your hook if it's really predictable. If the Shen just uses it in a certain way over and over again, just hook it and cancel it. It's like, it's decently fast, but not Darius hook fast. So you should be able to pull him out of it. And yeah. Honestly, this really isn't a difficult matchup to kill on your own. It's just about the wave control, because you got to have your wave like really intelligently played to deal with a Shen on the macro scale. So, two cases. Jungler's top, jungler isn't top. If the jungler is top, freeze. Okay? Now, you will not be able to stop Shen from teleporting, but that's the whole point. Because if the jungler is up here, then by going into the Shen, you can't actually stop them because they'll just kill you with a jungler. And worst case scenario is they kill you with the Shen and the jungler, and the Shen teleports anyway. So, like, if this jungler is around top, play passive, freeze. Now, if the jungler isn't top, you have their jungle warded well, or if you see them, they're clearly operating on bot side melee, they want to constantly shove waves into Shen's turret. Constantly. Non-stop. Make sure that he's constantly busy dealing with minions, right? If you can maybe, like, I guess proxy in some cases, it would be disgustingly well, but I wouldn't really recommend it because if the Shen gets a bit of help, he can very easily just set you up as a kill, okay? So just my recommendation, just shove waves constantly into his turret so that he's too busy, like, clearing minions. And what you can actually do is just stand near him, right? Get closer to him when a fight starts happening around the map. And the second he starts ulting, just walk up to him and hook him and walk out, okay? Even if he's under turret, if you do this cleanly enough, you should be able to get away and he shouldn't be able to kill you. So yeah, you really don't want to let him get the teleport off because it can be quite devastating. But the thing is, he will eventually get a teleport off at some point. And this is the point where we want to actually use your demolish to get a bunch of turret platings to punish the Shen even harder than usual. So yeah, this really isn't a matchup that's too difficult in terms of the mechanics of how to beat him, but the difficulty comes in the macro sense of like, you really got to have good wave control and great macro and great jungle tracking to do well in this matchup. Up next, we've got Singed. I'll put Singed in the mostly free tier because the thing with Singed is that he plays an entirely different game, which is proxying, right? You gotta try your very hardest to not let the Singed proxy, okay? Guard your jungle entrances. Walk your minions down in lane when you just spawn. Like, protect your mini wave. Make sure that, like, he can't clear the entire mini wave level 1 because what happens is, like, you want to basically walk with your minion wave level 1, and you want to basically walk in a way, because what a Singed is going to do is going to walk, like, near your turret, activate his poison trail, and then just run towards the middle of the lane, so that when your minions pass through, they'll just die level 1, right? And then what can happen is, because he shoved the first wave into your turret, you're stuck under your turret, and you can just go back at the door and go behind you and just proxy. So this is a really disgusting thing that you cannot allow, because the second Singed starts to proxy, he starts to win, because you can't stop him from farming, okay? Now, he doesn't get more ahead than you, it's just the whole thing with Darius is we gotta stop the enemy from, like, farming or whatever and ourselves get ahead. It's just, no, we can't do anything to him when he's proxying, and you need your jungler's help, okay? So try your best to not let him proxy. Now, ultimately, Singed is just annoying, okay? So don't get annoyed by him. Keep your head, keep your cool, focus on your own CS, and you should be good to go, right? Singed is not the most impactful champion until he gets into your head, okay? He's one of those champions where it's like, just the pure annoyance of it is like the majority of why it's like an annoying matchup, right? It's just annoying to deal with him. Now, there's a technique you can do where if he wants to flip you, you W him, right? So if he's walking up to you, you start your W. And after he's done flipping you, he will be in hook range. So just, he Ws you, then you hook him. And then you should be able to just kill him from there with a ghost quite easily. Strikebreaker is a godsend into this lane. It is absolutely amazing. Just like, you really farm this guy over and over again with Strikebreaker. Swifties can be a nice cheese choice if you're having trouble keeping up with them, but honestly, just use your abilities a bit more intelligently. And yeah, there's nothing really to this lane. Just don't get flipped, right? If you get flipped, try to hook him back like the exact way I told you. And also, like, be very understanding of how he can set his poison trail, because you don't want to take more damage than, you should. Our next matchup is going to be Sion. I'll put Sion in, like, the easiest tier possible. He can also do the same proxy stuff, but he's just worse at it than the Singed. Now, you don't really need any specific runes, I guess. You don't really need any specific items. You just gotta kill him. I guess if he wins lane somehow, by just God wills it, then you can go with Divine Sunder. And Divine Sunder is gonna be really good against it, because with Divine, it doesn't matter how much health he builds, you can just chop him up, no problem. So yeah, if he does go a lot of HP, Divine Sunder is your answer, but it's really not that necessary, honestly. Like, just kill him, honestly. I don't really see how you can have a problem with this lane. Just walk up to him, pick him up, put him down. I can't remember any tricks in this lane. Just kill him. Swain. Swain's also a really, really free matchup. If he does mess around with Phase Rush, he can kind of just waste time and make it a bit harder to put him down. But Swain doesn't have range. Swain doesn't have mobility. Swain doesn't have a lot of move speed. So, like, if you just hook him, he dies. Okay? So, like, I wouldn't recommend this, but if you really want to just farm him, you can literally just go boost his swiftness and just run up on him and kill him. So that he's forced to, like, use his W to farm or something crazy like that. But, it's not really necessary. Though, honestly, just, you kill him every time you have Ghost. Right? You don't really need to care about the counter items or whatever, right? I guess it does help to have some anti-heal, some MR, and some tenacity, right? In case you're struggling, but I can't imagine how someone can be struggling with this lane. Silas. Silas is kind of tricky to deal with, but you gotta just understand where most of his damage comes from, and that's his key, right? His whole chain thing, that's actually so much of his damage, okay? So as long as you're not in the area of it that explodes, you should be just good to go. He can't actually stand in your way and stop you from killing him in all-ins, right? He can't keep up with your damage-wise. Level 6, he does get your ultimate, but he gets, like, the 0-stack version of it, which sucks. So, yeah, he can't out-dunk the Dunk Master. Land your Qs, that's very important against this matchup, because he does have a lot of mobility, so EQs are going to be your friend. I guess rune-wise, Second Wind is helpful, or you could just go Sorcery and go for D-Shield, because that Q chain thing is a bit of a pokey sort of ability, and you're not going to be able to, like, counter it too much, so yeah. Social State does help, but aside from that, there's not really much you gotta know in this guy, against this guy. Tahm Kench. Tahm Kench as a matchup, let's think here. I'll put him here, because if you're up against a good Tahm Kench, it really does get quite annoying to put this guy down. Tahm Kench just gets so much free, like, tankiness, sustain out of nowhere, which lets him pull off some of the, like, the stupidest tricks you've ever heard of. Like, okay, like, let's get right into the matchup. Rune-wise, you want some sustain, I guess. You can also go for sorcery to just try to kill him as much as possible. Item-wise, Divine Sunder is your bread and butter. Just mess this guy up, mush him down. Cleaver works wonderfully as well. Starting items, you can go for D-Blade to just mess him up. D-Shield, if you're, like, expecting to take his Q damage, but just stand by your minions and don't take that damage. Yeah, let's just talk. This is one of those matches where you gotta just understand how to play it, rather than building some miracle thing that'll just win you later on. So yeah, first things first, I made a video on this matchup specifically, with footage and all that good stuff, so just go check that out if you specifically struggle with Tahm Kench. Now, first things first, you have to understand Tahm Kench's entire kit. This is a champion where he can pull off a lot of tricks with his kit, where, like, let's say you're pushing up a wave into him, level 6 or so, and then he's just standing there tanking the wave, and as you try to go push the wave through, he autos you 3 times, ults you, and then spits you out under his turret and you're dead. Or, like, there's so many of these tricks that he can do where, like, you get Noxian Might, he Q stuns you, and then he gets more attacks, he eats you, and then the stun and the eat duration is long enough to the point where you're out of Noxian Might. So, like, be aware of these tricks. Be aware of, like, how his little dive down thing works. It's like, it's unstoppable from the area he comes out at. It's like, just be aware of these things, okay? It helps to watch, like, a Tahm Kench guide or something, I'd say, so you can be aware of them and better know how to fight them, because if you're just aware of his tricks, that's literally the entire matchup, because that's literally what he is. Tricks. Tahm Kench is a bag of tricks. And if you know all the tricks, he cannot get kills on you, okay? Because it's all in, he's kind of just sorry. Like, you basically destroy him level 1 with just W, right? That's a clear fact. And you destroy him in all-ins. You basically just have to make sure that number 1, you're hiding behind your minions so you don't take Q damage. And 2, you don't let him get auto attacks on the wave. This should be like similar to the Mundo matchup in that he's literally off the wave at all times, right? He cannot be allowed to get on the wave. Every time he is, walk up, RWQ, bam, just destroy him, okay? Now, if you're in a big all-in situation, try your best to not get hit by the tongue when it stuns you, okay? When it stuns you, just don't get hit by it, because then he's going to be able to go underwater and then just, like, leave, right? That's his disengage. So, yeah. His shield is kind of sorry earlier on, too. Like, it's just kind of bad. So, yeah. I can't really... Like, ever since they nerfed his shielding and stuff and how strong he is alone, he's not really that much of a threat. Now, if he does have a jungler nearby, he does become a lot more difficult to put down, so he's difficult to 2v1. But just, honestly, just learn his tricks, and that's pretty much it for the matchup. The next matchup is going to be Teemo. I'd say Teemo is a pretty difficult matchup if the Teemo player is good. Now, most Teemo players are going to be terrible. You're going to be able to just walk up to them, pick them up, and kill them. But I've been up against some of the really good Teemos, and man, it's just you just hate your life when you're up against them. So yeah, rune wise, you can go for either sorcery, but you can also go for tenacity and sustain. So Legendary Tenacity, flinching second wind. But the thing about this matchup is that you really want good attack speed, because the way you weave in your auto attacks is really important in between his blind. So yeah, just have good attack speed, but also have some sustain, and tenacity cannot hurt. Merchand's first item is our rush here. We gotta go D-Shield, obviously. Starbreaker is really good into this lane. And let's just get right into how you fight this guy. Now, you really don't want to get trades, okay? You don't want to get, like, poked down by him. So just really understand his range and stay out of it. Only go for fights when you're both full HP and you can get hooks in, okay? So let's say you're, like, in a situation, right, where you want to look for a hook, and then, like, you just gotta wait for him to use his Q or his auto attack, okay? He's not gonna Q the wave, but he's gonna auto the wave first, right? He autos the wave first, then you go in, try to hook him, and there are two cases. He blinded you already, or he kept us blind. If he blinded you while you're hooking him, go for an EQ combo. If he kept us blind, then go for an E auto WQ, okay? Do not waste auto attacks while he's blinded you, okay? It's a waste of time, because it's not gonna land, right? So you better just, like, move your positioning in a way where you can get more auto attacks off, okay? Try your very best, okay, to wait out the blind and then get an auto attack right as soon as it's, like, over, okay? You gotta time it really properly, okay? So yeah, make sure you don't waste auto attacks with his blind. You don't want to have a case where you auto attack once, he blinds you, it's blocked. Then you get another auto attack at the end, but your timer missed properly, so it's another auto attack that's just gone out of the fight. And yeah, just be careful with how you play around his blind. Do not follow him when you're chasing him, because teamers will just walk through their own shrooms to get you to walk over them, right? Super is really good in this matchup. You could also just get like a control ward and just put it on the middle of the lane as you're trying to fight him to make sure you don't run into him, but these sweepers are just way better. And honestly, Teemo just sucks in all-ins, right? If you just pick him up for all-ins, you should be able to, like, I guess because of his blind, ignite, and the minions, he might be able to kill you earlier on if you're just way too aggressive and way too reckless with how much damage you take. But level 6, he shouldn't really be able to kill you at all. Your ultimate chunks him up for way too much, and Teemos don't usually go too much health, so it's like, it's just a matter of getting 5 stacks and putting him down. So, yeah, that's a Teemo matchup. But the thing is, right, if the Teemo's really good, he's going to be able to use his W move speed to kite you into the next dimension. That's when this matchup becomes annoying, when the Teemo actually uses W move speed properly. Now, I'd suggest going for Swifties. I guess it can help you get some hooks off. Merc Treads is also fine to reduce the duration of W. I just go for like full sorcery, full Swifties, just screw it. I'll go full move speed and try to kill him, but you know, the way you play is up to you, because you know, you're you. Trundle. I'd say Trundle is not that difficult of a matchup. to beat initially. He does get annoying to 1v1 later on because like he literally just builds his entire build into 1v1ing, whereas you have to actually build tank items so you can survive in team fights. So yeah, but earlier on it's not that much of a deal, big deal. Now rune-wise, you want to go for bone plating. It's kind of huge to go in this matchup because Trundle does like to get a bunch of all attacks off initially, so it's kind of nice. You can also go sorcery because kiting is a big part of this matchup. Item-wise, you can either go for D-Shield if you want to be a bit more defensive, but if you really want to just mess him up, go for D-Blade and mess him up. Ninja Tabi's is great. Strikebreaker is wonderful. It's actually mandatory to beat him later on in the game. If you're ahead and you get Triforce, you actually don't beat him in a side lane. He just straight up kills you. If he has like a Hullbreaker and a bunch of items, you can't 1v1 him. So yeah, you really need that Strikebreaker because the key thing about this matchup is that Trundle's DPS, like sheer melee DPS, is super, super high. So what we're trying to do is get our stacks, back off, and then get back in and put him down. That's like the rhythm that we want to employ, okay? So, yeah. There's not really much Trundle can do against that. He's not really a complicated champion to beat. Just kite him, okay? Don't let him get his off-attack, so especially since they take a little tempo nowadays. So just kite him, kite him, kite him. Don't let him bash your brains in with his spam auto-attacks. And you should be able to freely just win the lane. Now, the ultimate is a bit annoying to deal with, right? So be very careful with how you kite him, right? And be very careful with how you walk near walls, because the thing is, against Trundle, you do not want to walk near a wall, right? Because if you walk alongside a wall, he just puts a pillar right here, and you can't go through it, so you gotta go all the way around, and it slows in the area around it, so you're just kind of messed up, and you're just stuck in a position where you can't actually kite him, okay? So don't get into these kinds of situations, don't walk right next to walls, and don't get him free and good pillars. Landing Qs isn't that difficult against him. He literally doesn't have anything like complicated in his kit. He's just all attacks. So yeah, that's a Trundle matchup. Tryndamere. I'd say the Tryndamere matchup is like kind of same-ish as Trundle, just a bit kitey. Now, items-wise, you can go for sorcery. You can also go for some sustain because Tryndamere does have really good trading. So D-Shield second win is like a really good setup. As for items, like I said, D-Shield, Ninja Tabi's is perfect. Strikebreaker does wonders in this against this guy. And yeah. Now, against Tryndamere, you do not want to fight him earlier on, okay? Level 1, he gets lethal tempo, and he gets his like passive crit RNG. Now, you can have fights where you just straight up kill him early, okay? You can actually just straight up kill him. But if he RNGs a few more crits, then he just kills you, okay? You don't want to basically leave the lane up to the gods as to who wins it. So don't RNG the lane. Don't give in to the crit roulette machine. Just chillax and give him level 1. Now, once Tryndamere has prio over the lane, you kind of want to chill, okay? You don't want to mess with Tryndamere when he has full fury. You want to mess with him when he's like on control of the lane. Just chillax, let him crash the wave in. And then once you're in control of the lane, this is when you start becoming a threat to him, okay? When Tryndamere has no fury, he is really weak, okay? So if you can, go for all lanes when he has no fury. Now, when you're in control of the lane, do not let him get on top of the wave. A common trade combo that Tryndamere will do is they'll walk up, they'll auto-attack you to basically pray for a crit, and they'll insta-E away, right, to get the auto-attack damage off and the E damage off. Now, if the Tryndamere is the type of person to do this, right, they're going to do it once, but the next time they do it, you can actually just predict it and hook to cancel their E-dash. And honestly, once Tryndamere's E-dash is gone, he is just a sitting turtle, so you can just ghost around him and kill him quite easily. And you have more slows to work with than him, so even if he does ghost for ghost, like, as long as he's in your range, he should be pretty, like, much just screwed. You have higher attack range than him, too. I think I should double check that. It does feel like it. So, like, you can do a bit of kiting with your W, but be very careful, because even though your attack range might be higher, his attack speed is way faster. So just, even though, like, you're starting the attack first, he's going to get his attack off, like, quite quickly. So the difference in time won't be too, visible. Now, the way you fight all this is quite interesting because you don't want to actually burst him down. Like, you do want to burst him down, but you can't kill him, right? You can't ult kill him. He has his ultimate where he just survives. So what you basically want to try to do is go in on him, use all your abilities, including your ult, to burst him down, make him use his ultimate, and then you just kite him. Okay, kite. Do not take his full DPS. Use your Strikebreaker, use your Ghost, use your Hook, use your W to just kite him. As he's trying to dash away, you got to get one more attack on him, and if you do it correctly, it should be enough to just last hit him. Or at the very least, reapply the bleed, so that the bleed might kill him at the end, okay? So that's how you want to basically play your all-ins out, alright? Now, there's your ultimate. What I like to do is I just use my ultimate early to get him to ult faster, so that, like, I can have more of my HP to work with, and like I can just basically kite around better. So yeah, that's what I do. But if you want, you can keep your ultimate to just finish him off. It's quite powerful actually because of your ult's high range. Even if he does spin away, if you just get that point and click off correctly, he should be dead, like flash ult or something like that. So yeah, it really depends on how the Tryndamere themselves plays the game. But this is a pretty Darius-sided matchup because once Darius gets control of the lane, Tryndamere is really just like not able to walk up and do anything. Because again, like I said, if the Tryndamere does that whole spin dash way thing, Darius can just hook and cancel it, right? The bad thing about this matchup is that even though Darius trades really well against him, you can go for really disgusting items that make Tryndamere in the life of a nightmare. If the Tryndamere does get 1 or 2 kills, the lane is just over. Because unless you go for some cheese like a Frostfire Gauntlet or something, he's just going to farm you over and over again. He's going to get a ton of Q healing because, again, you don't have the priority to get him off the wave, right? So he's going to like go in, get into a stupid trade, take off most of your health, but then just Q heal so his health is back, and then just go in and kill you with his ultimate. He can just dive you under turret so you can't actually like sideline against him. So it's one of the worst champions in the game to lose against, in my opinion. Like Tryndamere. Like once he starts winning, it's just such an annoying little situation to be in. But just keep your head on your shoulders, keep your cool, make sure your kiting's enabled, your kiting hands are enabled, and use your abilities really carefully to not mess things up, and just use your slows properly, right? Use your slows in conjunction with your kiting to put some distance because Tryndamere does take ghosts, right? So the importance really is heavily emphasized on how you use your W and your hook. Now, a trick that I basically come up with to kill the Tryndamere is like, what you basically do is you put Tryndamere into a position where your ultimate will kill him, and now he's waiting to use his ult to like, block your ultimate. What you do is you walk into a bush and then you ult him. The thing is, when you ult him from a bush, he doesn't actually see it until it lands on him. So like, this is a great way of just messing up his timing. So if you can do this, you can do it with a W as well. Just get into a bush and then ult him from that. So yeah, that's a nice little trick that I've invented. Inventor. Okay, next matchup. Urgot. I'd say Urgot is kind of like a skill matchup mostly, right? It's kind of dependent on who kind of understands Urgot's abilities better, or Darius' abilities rather. But yeah, in terms of runes, you kind of want to go for some sustains, so second win is great. Sorcery can also work quite well if you're really delicate with how your positioning is. But if you're kind of more of like a brute forcey player, I guess Resolve, it has to be your go-to. So yeah, get some meat on the Resolve tree. But items-wise, you kind of want to go for D-Shield, right? Starting out with D-Shield because it is ranged. And then for your first, second backs, Tabu Rush is quite useful. Some of these can actually work disgustingly well into this matchup because of the slows and stuff, right? You got to do a lot of outmaneuvering against them. Let's think. Stridebreaker works wonderfully against him. You just put him down quite easily. Triforce can get a lot of work done too, actually, if you're, able to kill him before he can ult kill you. So yeah. But let's just get right into how to play the matchup. Now, the thing with Urgot is that his entire kit is just his E-flip. That's his entire kit. If he lands that, you're screwed. If he misses that, he's screwed. So just play the entire game around that one ability. Now, earlier on, level 1 and stuff, the winner of the matchup kind of depends less on the flip, but more on what the flip facilitates the Urgot to do, which is just his shotgun knees. Now, the shotgun knees, like, they're in 6 different degrees, 6 different directions, and the thing is, each of those does so much damage that if you can get like 3-4 of them off on you, you're just basically dead right there, right? So like if he gets too much of them on you, he just one-shots you. So do not let him get the shotgun knees off on you, okay? Just don't. They suck. Now, what you want to actually do is be very careful with your positioning, or just fight him in areas where he doesn't have shotgun knees, because he does have to attack the minions, right? And early on, they have such a high cooldown, they should be good to just avoiding them like a lot, right? So what you can do is like try to fight him, like W, run at him, fight him, or W, after you use the shotgun knee to hit the minion. And if he does flip you over, if you're really good with the position, he should be able to hit you with just one more shotgun knee, okay? Or even 2 in some cases if the angle is really bad. So yeah, don't let him hit you with too many of those and just kill him. Honestly, earlier on, he can't really do anything against you. Level 3, like level 2, 3, 4, 5, he's a pretty easy kill. So just don't eat too many shotgun knees, and you should be able to kill him with Ghost and run him down without too many problems. Now, the problems come in level 6, in that if he lands his like flip and his ultimate, he will just straight up kill you. There's nothing you can do about it. So you gotta avoid either the ultimate or the flip. If you avoid either, you get the kill, because if he gets the ultimate off, but not the flip, he doesn't set you up to get a lot of damage off of him, so you can just basically run away from him. But if he gets the flip, and he doesn't get his ultimate off, he doesn't actually have the damage to kill you. So you can just pretty much just put him down. So the key thing here, in my opinion, would be to use your flash to dodge either the flip or the ultimate. And the thing with Aatrox flip is that the angles at which he's going to do it sometimes is like, let's say this is his turret, this is him, and this is you. He's not going to flip like, you know, to the side. He's going to flip directly towards you. And when he does this, if you flash to the side, he's going to travel a long distance away from his turret, which gives you a lot of room to just run him down and kill him, okay? So even if he does have flash, you should be able to catch up with Ghost and just put him down eventually with your ultimate anyway. So yeah, once you kill him a few times, he's just an easy person to just pick up and kill. His range is really low, so it's really easy to just mess him up and just snowball off of him. And yeah, there's not really much to explain. Just like stick to your fundamentals and know these kinds of basic things. Vayne top. This is by far like the worst matchup for Darius, in my opinion. Like, she is really terrifying to fight. Now, rune-wise, you can kind of go for sustain, but I just go for move speed to get some cheese kills earlier on. Same with our build. Go for D shield early is quite mandatory, and then you want to go for top Bs early. After that point, you kind of don't like. It doesn't really matter where you go, because the thing is, right? Vayne's early isn't even that good, but the second she gets her ultimate and she gets her first item, you're done. Like, you can be an entire item or two up on the Vayne, and if she has that ultimate and an item or two, she will just straight kill you. Straight up. Her champion is created to counter Darius. Think of it like that. There is no hope. There is no hope of you killing her after laning phase. So don't even think about what magic build can I go that will let me beat this Vayne 1v1? You won't be able to. It's over. She beats you 1v1 no matter what, okay? So just have this in your mind as you play the game out. Now, early laning phase, her ulting is actually quite weak. So if you can land a hook on her, you can pretty much just run her down and kill her with your Ghost. The thing is, a lot of Vayne players are cheesers, so they'll go flash Ghost to just match your flash Ghost. And if you can get her to use her sums, then it's an easier gank and kill for your jungler. But if you don't have your jungler, then you're not going to be able to do too much. But if you do land your hook, it is a matchup that you can get kills in, okay? So her ulting is kind of terrible early on. And until level 6, you can basically just pull her and kill her over time with your auto attacks. And even if she has her ultimate, if you get your 5-stack ultimate off on her, she should be like just one shot off of that. So yeah, the difficult part really isn't the early lane. Like, the early lane is difficult as is, annoying to fight. If you miss your hook, you are boned. Like, do not miss your hook. But the really difficult part comes later on, because the second she gets that first item, it is just over, man. She's just hard-coded to beat you. There's nothing else you can do. So obviously there's more advice I could give against this matchup, but in my opinion, it's just best to just ban Vayne. Just ban her. Like, she's completely annoying. Nobody even plays her in ADC anymore because she's terrible, right? So, at least now. So she's a great ban because only people who play her top lane are going to pick her. Then the next matchup is Vladimir. I'll put this into the boring tier of no-kill lane. Not that even skill matchup, but like a no-kill lane. Because basically speaking, Vladimir, if he's smart, he will never be in position for you to just put him down. And the thing is, right, he can kind of outrange your hook anyway, so getting hooks on him is quite difficult. Now, rune-wise, I'd go for full move speed, sorcery. Item-wise, D-Shield is fine, Starbreaker is great, Anti-Heal is actually kind of necessary in some cases, but if you play properly, not so much. Just see how you play it. And you really need a Magic Resist too, so get a null mantle at some point at least, so that he doesn't one-shot you. Now, the thing with this matchup is that, okay, if you get into melee range against him level 1, you kill him. But no one's going to let you do that, right? No Vladimir player is going to let you get into melee range, start for hitting the mic level 1, or at any point in the game. So what you want to do is land your hooks against him, right? I know, crazy, but it's not as easy as it sounds. Because Vladimir has a lot of tools in his kit to just land things on you as you get that hook off. And even if you hook him, he can just E you, which slows, and then Q you. And the W pull itself is like an attack. So it basically gives him phase rush. And he can just run out of there while being untargetable. So unless you have Ghost and can just follow him and catch up to him and kill him, you won't be able to kill him. And if the Vladimir goes Ghost himself, then he'll just go Ghost for Ghost and you won't be able to kill him at all. Now, the way I've come up with to cheese kills in this lane is going Boots of Swifty's first item. Because guess what? Due to how low of a move speed he has, Swifties will let you get hooks guaranteed every single time. And in some cases, you can literally just run up to him and W him, okay? So like Swifty is like a life hack against this lane. So just try it. You'll be able to get hooks constantly. You'll get into his range constantly. And his W pull, it's annoying because it speeds him up with Phase Rush and slows you. Swifties makes the slow a bit less of a factor. So that's another good thing with my life hack. But honestly, it's not really too necessary. You could just go the default thing of boots, MR, some anti-heal, Strikebreaker, and then kill him in an all-out fight. But this Swifties is just like a nice trick you can do to beat him. Volibear. I'll put Volibear in the even matchup tier. Maybe actually even in here because Volibear kind of counters most Darius players, but I do like. Okay. First off, I can't remember the last time I fought Volibear, so I'm trying to like make my judgment based off of the last times I've fought him. But it's like I don't remember losing to Volibear that much, if I'm being honest. It's not really a matchup that's like too much of a problem if you know exactly what you're doing and if you play around your Ghost, okay? Because the thing with Volibear is that Volibear counters Darius, Ghost counters Volibear, okay? Now, rune-wise, Second Wind helps. Sorcery definitely helps because you gotta have a lot of move speed. Item-wise, Strikebreaker is a godsend. Divine Sunder is also really, really meaty against him. But really just change the way you play against him to beat this guy up. Now, I've made a video on this matchup, so it's in the same video with my Yorick matchup, I think. So, yeah, just look that up. Darius' worst matchup, so it should be in there. I don't think I have it in the thumbnail of it, but it's in the same video with Yorick and Vayne. So go check that video out. I think it's the last matchup I covered in that video. But anyway, so it's very in detail. So if you struggle with the matchup, go check that video out. Now, the way you play this matchup is basically just understanding how his trade rotation works. First off, level 1, you kill him. There's nothing he can do to fight you and beat you level 1. So just kill him level 1. I guess if he has lethal tempo, he can out-cheese beat you. But if he doesn't, then just press W and then just kill him. Now, the way Volibear fights Allins is like this. He Qs, he stuns you, and then he puts E on top of you, okay? So our number one goal is to avoid the E, but you can't avoid the E if he stuns you with his Q, okay? So our goal is to 1, avoid E, 2, avoid his Q. That is where Ghost comes in. The thing with Volibear is that if you go for Qs against him, you gotta go for the very edge Qs, okay? And then just run away from him. But if you don't have your Ghost, you won't be able to outrun him because his Q gives him more mostly against targets. So it's all about how you use your Ghost. If you Ghost, when he Qs at you, then he won't be able to get it off. Then you can actually go back and fight him. He's gonna come down. You can just Ghost and run out of it because he doesn't have his Q anymore, right? And at this point, he's just basically just like dead because without his Q, without his E, he's really just like gone, man. Now the thing is, right, this entire rotation of this is all about his E because it shields him and it does a ton of damage. So we're avoiding his Q to avoid his E, right? So don't just dodge his Q and then just run into his E like, yeah, like that was the whole point. But yeah. Use your Ghost properly, and if you kill him with Ghost like 2-3 times, it's a very easy match to just get fed and snowball him because Volibear doesn't have a lot of range. So at best, what he's gonna do is just stand near his turret and just E spam the wave to just clear it and get some CS. So yeah, be very careful with how you use Ghost. You don't beat him. You plus Ghost, you destroy him. Okay, Ghost counters everything in his kit. Okay, so yeah, be very careful with how you Q here. You don't wanna. The thing is, if he's in the inner area of Q, he's in range to just lunge on you. So be very precise with how you Q him. So yeah. The next matchup is gonna be Warwick. I'll put Warwick in the same tier as Volibear because he just got it. It's a really, really cheese matchup. It's an insanely cheese matchup, but it really puts a test to your kiting skills because you gotta kite him really hard. Okay. Now, in cheese fights that are just all attacks, he straight up wins against you. So don't give him any of those. Okay. In terms of runes, I'd go for like Second Wind or even Sorcery since I'm focusing on kiting him. In terms of items, D-Shield works if you're trying to be defensive, but D-Blade is going to help you basically just maul him if you kite him properly. Item-wise, Strikebreaker is amazing. Anti-Heal is great. Bramble Vest like kind of works well here because it always hits you right. And it's really more about how you play rather than the items you build. Anyway, the next idea with this matchup is that in meat fights, where he just constantly attacks you, he's going to win. But if you kite him and make sure to get your stacks off on him intelligently, there's nothing you can do, okay? Since he has more auto-attacks than you gotta basically kite him to make sure that he can only auto-attack you when you can auto-attack him, right? So basically slowing the fight down where you're keeping up your max DPS, whereas he is basically not. Because you're kiting him, you're slowing the auto-attack down. Now be very careful with how he Qs you. Because if he uses a Q properly, he can get on top of you and then dodge your own Q with it. So when you want to Q him, make sure to do it with like just the outer edge of Q. Like he's like walking into you to like bite you, just like follow him, okay? Because if he gets into like the inner half of the outer Q, he will be able to latch onto you with his bite, okay? So be very careful with how you Q him. Now, once he bites, you want to go for RW, run out, auto out, auto out, auto out. When he activates his E to like, or is this W to the fear thing. When he activates that to stop you from doing damage to him, then just walk back. Don't get caught by that fear, because that gives him more room to get auto attacks in, more healing, etc., etc., etc. We want to reduce his DPS as much as possible. Honestly, if you can kite Warwick, this is like the easiest matchup ever. So I'll put it in like I really want to like put him around here, but like I do understand that sometimes like it's hard for people to kite him like that. So I'll put him in even skills, which I guess he also has his power spike that it's quite tough to beat. So I'll put him here, skill matcher. But yeah, if you can kite him properly, you get kills on him really easily. Okay, so it's quite easy to just snow off this guy. Now, the big power spike that the Warwick has is his ultimate. Because his ultimate gets on top of you, it heals him, it does a ton of damage, and it's really difficult to deal with in 1v1 scenarios. But it is, like, you basically gotta make sure that he doesn't use his bite to get behind you and his ultimate to get on you. He doesn't use these things to dodge your abilities, okay? If you land your abilities, you should still be able to pull them down. Now, a trick you can do against Warwick is if he ults you, and you start your hook before he gets on top of you, if he starts ulting you, your hook will basically pull him, and you'll be able to peel his ultimate off of yourself, okay? Because again, Darius' abilities don't get countered by CC. And this allows Darius to basically peel the Warwick ultimate off of himself and stop being suppressed. And if you do this mechanic in this matchup, you should be able to kill him pretty easily, right? If you do this, he's just gonna be like, how do you do that? And you just put him down, right? So yeah, that's basically what we're aiming for to do in this matchup. Use our hook to stop him from killing us. But yeah, if you don't do that, you should be able to just kite him out and eventually burst him down with your ultimate. So yeah, do not get into auto attack fights when he's low HP. Like seriously, he does so much damage. He has such high attack speed, and also he like heals more. So be very careful with him when you're both low HP. And yeah, honestly, if you just keep your cool, and if you're good at kiting, this is a really easy matchup because Warwick players aren't really, let's just say, good at the game. Like they're pretty like not so good at the specific fundamental tiny mechanics, and that's like what kiting is, right? Tiny little mechanics of movement that you do to basically stop them from damaging you. So if you kite properly, should be no problem for you to just get kills in pre-6. And post-6, it might be like a difficult lady to get kills against because he can just literally ult out and disengage from any situation. So it's not too easy to it's not an easy matchup to snowball from, but it's a matchup that you can definitely win. Our next matchup is going to be Yasuo. Now, if the Yasuo is really good, it's basically an easy win. If he's bad, it's like a free matchup, so I'll put him in the middle right here. Runes don't matter too much. Items don't matter too much either, but you can go for play the steel types and Stridebreaker. But really what's important is how you exactly play this matchup, okay? Now, level 1 and 2, you don't want to mess with him. He has lethal tempo, which means that if he gets to an all-out meat fest, he's going to be able to cheese kill you, okay? So level 1 and 2, we're chilling. Level 3 is where this lane turns down because Yasuo's wind ball is useless against you. So you can basically just rank your QWE and just non-stop go for fights. Yasuo cannot beat you, okay? In an all-in fight, he does not have the meat to actually put you down. So just level 3, pick him up, ghost up on him, and kill him. The best you can do is just waste your time by dashing through your minions. So just be aware of how much escaping he can do, right? Don't let him get away easily. But because you have ghost, you should be able to catch up to him and put him down anyway, right? So he's not a problem to deal with. Level 3. Level 6, you get your ultimate, so you can just basically one-shot him. A trick you can do actually is, as he's about to tornado you, you hook him, and because he is hook stunned, he can't actually ult you. So this is a great way of basically nullifying his ultimate in the fight. You want to be very careful with your Qs because you can just dash into them and dodge them at any point, right? But honestly, you can just auto-attack him to do that, so it's not too big of a problem. It's just like not a matchup that he can win, okay? So just put him down and kill him. The only thing that kind of makes this matchup awkward is if you die early or if he gets some jungle help or whatever, because he can't actually get to a point where he can just straight up just cheese kill you over and over again with these kinds of helps and whatever. But even if you lose and get messed up early, if you get safely to level 6 and he does not have shield bow, you should be able to kill him. Now, once he gets shield bow and he's ahead, it gets really hard to actually kill him because of his passive shield and the shield bow shield. But if you're ahead, it doesn't really matter what he has, you'll be able to put him down. Now, he does scale up hyper late game because he's kind of like a carry champion. He does way too much damage, but it doesn't really matter, honestly. You should be able to kill him for the majority of the game. Yone. I'll put Yone in a bit of a higher tier than Yasuo. Now, Yone is like a really annoying champion to deal with because of lethal tempo, right? Lethal makes it so that he can get a lot of attacks off on you. So level 1, you don't want to mess with him. You basically want to start laning in level 2 or more crucially level 3. Now, the way you fight him is like this, okay? You kind of want to get on top of him when he's not inside of that E form, okay? What a lot of Yones will do is they'll hang back, they'll get the second Q off, and then they'll like dash in on you using the E. You don't want to let him do that. You don't want him to get on top of the wave. So just get on the wave and zone him off of it. Runes don't really matter too much. Your items don't matter too much, but Starbreaker kind of helps. But it really matters how you play specifically against him, okay? So don't let him get his Q tornadoes off on the wave. His Q range is kind of similar to your own Q range, so you can get Qs off on him if he tries that. But honestly, start the fights with auto W, and then kill him, honestly. The thing with Yone is that if you just catch him outside of his E ghost form, I guess if you can call it, he's basically dead, okay? Now, one thing for sure is that like you can't actually raw Q him, because if the Yone is good, he'll just use his E to like get into the inner area of your Q. So make sure to go for EQ combos, and yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Another thing to keep in mind is that his ultimate and his Q knockup can get a lot of damage on top of you before you even notice it. So if you're in like a level 6 all-in type scenario against Yone, what can actually happen is that he Q knocks you up with his empowered Q or whatever, and then he ults you, and you're CC'd for so long that he can get a lot of damage off on you and just kill you out of nowhere. This just happens because of lethal tempo. He just gets a lot of attacks off during that unstoppable CC. So you do not want to get juggled by him, okay? Avoid either his third Q or his E. The thing is, you can use your hook to stun him while he's in his like Q thing. Like you won't stop the actual wind that will knock you up, but you will stop him so he can't instantly ult. And the whole thing is like he can get attacks off and like he can get attacks off while he has you knocked up. Okay, so that's like the dangerous part against Yone. So because you have him CC'd, you can basically move around and maybe even dodge his ultimate or whatever with your ghost. Anyway, I don't really see anybody having too many problems with killing Yone and all. It's just don't let him like sneak his damage up on you. Just don't get into auto attack meat fests. Don't let him cheese escape from you, and it should be pretty easy to kill him over and over again. Now he does kind of outscale you eventually, but that's just the nature of the game, right? Yorick is quite a tough matchup to deal with as Darius. I've made a video on this matchup specifically, so if you want like a dedicated guide to it, look it up. Now, I go into depth into every single aspect of this matchup, by the way, so that is like the video I want to go for. Now, there's not really any runes that are going to make this matchup easier on you. I guess you can go for sustain, and items aren't going to help too much either, right? Because he has so much mixed damage that it's really difficult to just tank up against him. So, I guess Starbreaker helps. Divine Center kind of can help if you can get on top of him. Triforce is not that bad, but if the hard part is just getting on top of him. So the way this matchup is difficult is that earlier on, level 1, 2, 3, he doesn't do anything. But the second you crash the wave into his turret, he gets his ghouls, and now he has a reliable source of long-range poke that you can't really do anything against. And he can use this over and over again as long as he has ghouls. Okay? Now, you can obviously try to zone him off the wave by standing in the wave and killing him. And killing him is not that much of a difficulty earlier on. But once he gets Maiden, the Maiden just generates ghouls the second a minion dies. That is when this matchup becomes really unwinnable, because he can just like non-stop toss his ghouls at you. So you got to put on your dodging pants to actually win this matchup. You can go for like Swifties, I think, to have a better time dodging his E, such a thing that aggroes the ghouls on you. And as for his cage, you basically want to do an auto W on the cage itself to kill it. And it's really just about killing the Yorick. Like you gotta basically catch the Yorick and get on top of him as much as possible. Now it does help to save your W for the cage itself, but then he's gonna put a point in it, so he's gonna have 3 points, then it's not gonna work, but still, right? So, like, it's not an easy matchup. But if you can get on top of the Yorick and kill him a few times, it does get easier to put him down over and over again, okay? Your number one objective in this matchup is kill him before level 6, okay? You gotta kill him before level 6. If you don't, the matchup gets nightmarish. And at level 6, you wanna basically, like, not get hit by either the cage or the spell. You gotta dodge him, because if you get hit by the cage, it sets up the aggro ability. If you get hit by the aggro ability, because it slows, it sets up the cage. Now, a trick that I've done is basically this. I'll try to basically get hit or like bait one of the abilities, and because they use both of them at the same time, so if he cages up and then he uses his like little aggro thing, I just flash towards the Yorick and then kill him. This is like a legitimate tactic, but you gotta do it when both the abilities are down, because if you don't, then he's going to basically use the ability to just make sure that your flash is void and then himself flash out. Okay, so like the whole thing about this tactic is that we're basically avoiding both of his like annoying abilities as it's ghosting towards him, and even if he has his flash, you can catch up to him with ghost. And because he doesn't aggro the ghouls on top of you, they do very little damage. Like the damage is quite pathetic if he doesn't land his E on you or his W. I don't know which one it is, so yeah. But generally speaking, just avoid the aggro one. That's like the big one, right? The cage, it's annoying. It just stops you from killing him. But the aggro one is so annoying. Like if it lands on you, you are just doomed, okay? So yeah, don't let Yorick basically kite you around this cage for too long. He can just straight walk through it and basically make it so you can't auto-attack him. This is a really weird bug where even if the Yorick is in your auto range, if he puts a cage down, your champion will just start aggroing on the cage itself rather than the Yorick. So it's like a really buggy thing. The cage is not actually terrain. It's a unit that body blocks you. So it works like nothing else in the entire game, which is why it's such a weird thing to just learn the mechanics of. Now, this really isn't a matchup that I can easily transmit to you how I went through words. I've done a lot of diagrams and stuff in the official video I've dedicated to it, so go check that out and use that information on top of this one to get your Yorick matchup fix. Our last matchup is going to be Zac. Now, Zac is not really the best top laner in all of this, which is what we're going to try to exploit to get fed off of this guy. Now, runes and items don't really matter in this thing. It's just about understanding Zac's kit. First off, don't let him pick up his blobs. His blobs are a source of a disgusting amount of sustain. So when you can, pick them up, okay? And aside from that, there really isn't much you gotta know. Just beat him up. Just kill him. Just attack him, right? Whenever he's in your range. He doesn't have a lot of range. He doesn't have a lot of poke. So just pick up his blobs and kill him in all-ins. Now, the thing with Zac is that you can't actually cancel his jump. So what the Zac actually wants to do is stun you with like the thing where he like auto-attacks you and then just puts the two units together, and then he wants to jump out. So I want to basically make it so that he either doesn't get that auto-attack, or he does get it, but he does like... Let's just put it like this. This is a turret. This is him. This is you. If he does the clap thing here, and you're CC'd, if he jumps out, you won't be in range to hook him. But if you're like right here, and then he does a clap thing, doesn't matter what he basically slams you into, you'll be in such a range around him that even if he does dash, you'll be in range to actually pull him out with your hook and pull him back. I hope I displayed that properly, how it basically works, but just try to use your imagination. But yeah, you gotta basically position in a way where you'll still be in range to hook him out of his jump. And the thing is, if the Zac does like a small jump, then the range is gonna be so short that you can just walk at him with Ghost anyway. He has to basically hold it to get a really long range jump off. And if it's like a hold, you can just cancel with your hook really, really easily. So yeah, honestly, just cancel his jump, kill him, don't let him pick up his blobs, and destroy him, right? One thing, okay, here's a trick that a lot of Zac players do, which is they let you push the wave and crash it into their turret. They jump behind you, they ult to clear the wave, and then because you're constantly CC'd, you're stuck under his turret with your wave gonster just taking aggro even if you've not hit him. So be very aware of this trick. And also, if you understand when Zac might jump on you, you can always just cancel it in midair, right? You can always just hook Zac out of his jump, no problem. Alright, that's pretty much it for this video. I am finally done. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.